Hi everyone, I'm Dave, and you are listening to my podcast, The Reaction Shot. Listen as each episode will showcase a movie that I love being introduced to a friend of mine that has never seen it. We will discuss, dissect, and review each film from pre to post-production, as well as its legacy. Will we see eye to eye, or is our scope of viewing a little different? Thanks for hitting play, because now you're about to find out. Fade in. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Reaction Shot. We are here at episode 7, and I have returning guest Lauren Drake with me. Hi
Hey.
Lauren, how are you?
I'm great, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing good. Okay, I presented some more movies to you, and Hereditary is the one that we went for this time.
We is a very, it was more like you're watching this
Okay.
one.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
To be
It's
fair.
not one we agreed upon.
Okay. Yeah. Way
Yeah.
to sell me out in front of everyone. It's fine. All right. So yes, Hereditary was the movie I chose for Lauren and I to do for episode 7. It is a 2018 supernatural and psychological family tragedy horror drama. Definitely a lot of little subgenres there, but I definitely feel like there's a lot happening, especially on an emotional and visual scale. Those genres, to me, kind of sum up exactly what we're dealing with when it comes to this movie. Lauren, what is your background on Hereditary? What did you know about it? And, how did you feel when you went ahead and went to go press play?
Oh my gosh. So I really don't remember ever hearing about it ever. And then I told a few people that I know that I was watching it. Our good friend Courtney was like, she was like, one of the scenes I almost threw up, and it was the most disturbing scene I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, oh, cool, great. Can't wait to watch that.
You're
And then
welcome.
my girlfriend said that it changed her forever. So I was like,
Nice.
well, shit. I was very, 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 very nervous to watch this movie.
Like,
Terrified.
very nervous.
Like, very nervous, yeah.
Okay, were you like, your hands were shaking when you pressed play on the remote? You were just like, play.
Well, at that point, I'd had like a few White Claws, so I think
Okay.
I was like preparing.
You eased the pain.
Yes, I did.
I love that.
Just gave me that boost of confidence.
Good. Thank you, White Claw, for helping Lauren to actually get the nerve to press play. My background with Hereditary, I saw some trailers for it. I heard some buzz, online from, various movie sites that I visit often, talking about this new horror movie that was circulating film festivals. It started circulating the festivals in January of 2018. And at that time, people were saying it is one of the scariest movies they have ever seen. They were comparing it to the likes of Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist in terms of the psychological scare tactics and the demonic background of the film. Immediately I hear all those words and I'm like, this is going to be my new favorite movie. I cannot wait. So in June 2018, the movie came out. Zach and I went to go see it opening week. I will be honest with everyone that is listening to this that knows that I love horror films. This movie definitely had me feeling very uneasy, especially about a half hour into the film. I honestly felt not nauseous, but like a tightness in my stomach. I felt like maybe my heart was racing a little bit faster than normal. I felt very uncomfortable. And I honestly feel like I felt that through the rest of the film. And that's one thing I give credit to Hereditary for, is being a modern film that actually disturbed me in a way. So I think just that alone, for my viewpoint, made this film definitely a contender for one of my top favorite movies of all time. I watched it again once it came out to own with two of our friends. I was so excited for them to see it, and they felt like it was extremely boring and had no interest in it. So I was like, okay. My friends Jason and Emilio.
Okay, I was gonna ask. Yeah.
Yeah, so Zach and I invited them over to watch it, and they were invested in it and everything, but they didn't get the same reaction from it that I did.
Oh,
Uh,
I feel for
which
you, Dave. That's like
which
your
is
worst when you show someone something that you love and they
hmm
hate it and you're like, shit.
yeah, I'm like, oh, here it comes, and then
Yeah.
it's just like crickets, and I'm like, okay, cool, maybe they weren't watching. And then I want to like rewind it and then break it down for them, which is why I started this podcast. So
Mhm.
thank you for being on the other end of that for some of these episodes. Yeah, so that's my background with the film. It is written and directed by Ari Aster. This is actually his first theatrical film. I think that's a great first theatrical film. Regardless if people like it or not, there's definitely tons of conversation around it, and I think it's only gained momentum in the past 6 years from its release. So good for him. It was released on June 8th, 2018. It was a budget of $10 million, and it went on to gross $88 million
Yeah.
worldwide. So pretty successful in that term.
Very successful.
So upon its release, critics were highly favorable when it came to their response, giving that very high ratings, saying it's a great new horror film. Again, comparing it to Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist. However, upon its initial release, audiences were grading it very low. It started off with an average grade online of D plus for
Ew.
people seeing it. Yeah, a lot of people were citing it being really bad pacing, too slow of a burn, and not being able to fully grasp what the story was about or the background of the film. So, yeah. However, over time, nowadays that audience score has gone up. It is now in the B's, and again, like I said, it's been a big topic of conversation and has made it to many people's movies you must watch before you die lists. So, Lauren, congratulations on watching a movie you must watch before you die.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're so grateful that you got to witness this
Yes,
film. hmm
I
Yeah,
think it would have made a difference.
yeah. It's the movie definitely. So I give a lot of credit to the score of the film, the musical composer, Colin Stesson. He he scored the film, and there's actually 85 minutes of a musical score throughout this film, which is on the high side of how much music is actually being played in the background. It doesn't necessarily rely on jump scares. But one thing I did notice watching it this time around is that music almost just it's almost like a heartbeat in the background, and
Yeah.
I think that adds to the element of the uncomfortable feeling. And even watching it this time, I'm not gonna lie, I was still uneasy. It just
Really?
something about this movie just gets under my skin. It doesn't scare me. Like I could very easily watch this alone at nighttime and go to bed right afterwards, no problem. However, I just when I'm watching it, I just feel like, oh, it's kind of I don't know, traumatic in a weird way. So I don't know.
I just feel like to me you're that person that nothing ever bothers you. Like you can do whatever and nothing will get past it's so weird to hear you say it like disturbed you because you're such like a horror movie person and n- I don't know. I'm like, Dave, you?
Come on, Dave.
No,
Uh,
I'm just saying.
yeah, no, this is again. I mean, there are plenty of people I've heard that think this movie is boring, that they don't fully get invested into the characters, and obviously that is totally fine. I, however, just felt I don't know, I felt like it's a part of the family. One of the scenes in the movie, which we're obviously going to talk about, I felt like I was involved in it. Every viewing that I've had of this movie, I just feel the same. It's not. I think about it a lot. Like I actually think about this movie a lot. So I feel like in that way it's kind of grasped onto my mind and weird. I know. Congratulations, Ari Aster and cast for traumatizing David Herman.
Yeah. Takes a lot to traumatize Dave
Yeah,
Herman.
man, I'm telling you. Jeez. Okay, so I want to talk about the cast really quick. We have the iconic Toni Collette playing
Yes,
Annie
yes, yes,
Graham.
yes. So good.
Phenomenal.
Like I couldn't ugh. It was like on par with what is that movie that we just watched before this one called? The Shining. Like what's that movie called?
Well, that one didn't leave a lasting impression, it seems.
No, it did. It did. I saw your post on the 4th of July. I
Yeah,
saw
it's.
that.
Did
And then I
you?
saw your post today about Shelley Duvall.
Yes.
So
Yeah, sadly, today, July 11th, Shelley Duvall passed away in her sleep peacefully. So
How old was she? Do you know?
I actually think I think she had just turned 75 a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she just celebrated her birthday not too long ago. I do feel like it was over the weekend, and today being Thursday, so yeah, it was probably about 5 days ago. Um, yeah, 75 years old. She's been having complications from diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
They cite the diabetes being the root cause of her passing away. So rest in peace, Shelley
Aw.
Duvall.
Yeah, Shelley.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So we have back to Hereditary. We do have Toni
Yeah.
Collette playing Annie Graham. We have Gabriel Byrne playing Steve Graham. We have Alex Wolff playing Peter Graham, and we have Millie Shapiro in her feature film debut playing Charlie Graham. That's our nice little family, mom, dad, son, and daughter, the perfect Americana right there. Uh, I'm sure
Uh-huh.
nothing. I'm sure nothing will tear them apart. Rounding out the family, we also have Ellen, the grandmother of Peter and Charlie, who is also Annie's mother. And the other two notable characters we have is played by Anne Dowd, and we have Bridget, a somewhat love interest for our the son Peter, played by Mallory Betchel. I don't know if that's how you say her name, but that's how I'm going to say it. So
Sorry,
Mallory,
Mallory.
sorry, Mallory. You'll probably never hear this, but if you do, I apologize. All right. So now that we have the cast of characters named, before we jump into the film, I do want to talk about the background on this film.
Yes. Tell me the
Okay.
background so I understand this movie.
Okay, yes, guys. So this movie is very hard to understand. It's not overly complicated per se. There's just a lot of background that they sprinkle information about throughout the film. You kind of have to grab at all the pieces and maybe write it all out or figure it all out to really get the full effect of everything that is happening. So bear with me for about 5 minutes. I do think that this actually helped me a lot, where I felt like I understood it for the most part. Breaking this down really helped. So anyone who has seen the film, listening to this will hopefully help out a little bit as well. And anyone who hasn't seen the film, consider this like a prequel to the movie. And obviously, we're going to spoil the hell out of this thing. So if you really want to see it, I would honestly stop listening after this little introduction. So, okay, upon research, I watched a bunch of videos. In my nerd moment, I took a bunch of notes, kind of studied this demon, Payman.
Payman.
Yeah, this is like a reverse Bible study type thing I did. I don't know, it was very creepy.
Wait, he's from the
Payment?
Bible?
No, so it's not technically
No,
from the
okay.
Bible.
Okay.
I definitely researched that, but he is considered a follower of Lucifer in a way. His
Oh, good
story
old
kind of
Satan.
good old Satan, man. He's creeping around every corner,
Oh,
especially in this
yeah.
damn film. Uh, Okay, so a little background on Payman. Payman
Yeah.
is a demon, the king, a king of hell. He is obedient to Lucifer. He appears male with a female face. He's said to possess a lot of wisdom and other powers like flying, resurrecting the dead, and creating visions of people and other things, all of which happen in this movie. Payman requests decapitations for his sacrifices. Even Annie finds a picture of him holding three dissembled heads at one point in the film. Payman offers riches to those that help him find a male host to embody on Earth. So, in 1577, Payman is first mentioned in a mythical Latin grimoire, which is a instructional manual on summoning supernatural entities.
I know what a grimoire is.
Ooh,
It's a witchy thing, Dave.
well, hey, girl, we're going back to 1577 with this one.
Yeah.
I like that you know what that is. I've never heard that word before, and I like,
You've never heard of grimoire? Oh
no,
my gosh. It's like a witch's like spell book,
yeah,
basically. Yeah.
interesting. Hey, we're visiting one with this film. So Payman started as an angel who had a great admiration for Lucifer. He
Hmm.
became one of his followers. When Lucifer was banished from heaven, his followers were banished as well. Payman's full origins in text come from the Lesser Key of Solomon from the mid 17th. It's a spell book on demonology. This book contains information on 72 different types of demons and how to summon them for personal gain.
Yeah.
Whew.
Sounds like fun.
You guys creeped out so far? All right. Each demon has a symbol that represents them, which are supposed to be made out of a specific metal. For kings, like Payman, it is made of gold. In the movie, the stand-in for the Lesser King of Solomon book is the Invocations book that Annie finds in the attic. Because he is said to be male with a feminine face, it's believed this is why he wants a male host only, so he can look fully masculine. That way he can correct his image and feel more powerful. In the text, wherever Payman goes, he is preceded by a host of spirits and demons in the shape of men with trumpets and other cymbal instruments. Payman is said to have a great voice, and he roars whenever he arrives. He is said to have great knowledge and the ability to have an answer for any question asked. If
Kind of
Payman is
sounds like a douchebag.
yeah, he's very conceited.
Kind of
Like,
sounds like a douchebag.
yeah, so if you're ever gonna meet a demon, this dude's like totally conceited.
Literally, the worst type of person is the person that thinks they know everything on
Hmm.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. Gross,
Ugh.
Payman. We have 71 other demons we can summon according to this book, so
Yeah.
let's pass on this guy. If Payman is summoned, a sacrifice must be made. He must be observed through the northwest, for that is where he inhabits. Payman feeds off the conjurer's fear. So that's the background on Payman. That is kind of the mythology around Payman in old literature and his connection to Lucifer.
Mhm.
So, with all that information, I kind of worked a background, a prequel, if you will, to things that happen right before the film starts. This information is given sporadically throughout the film in little things of dialogue or in text. So, in 1939, Ellen Lee was born. Unknown if she or one of her ancestors passed the association down, we assume that she has a connection with Payman. She becomes the queen of King Payman. Essentially, she becomes the cult leader responsible for finding him a male vessel. She marries a man named Martin. They
Mhm.
had their first kid, Charles, and the daughter, Annie. When Annie was a baby, her father, Martin, had psychotic depression. He starved himself to death. Ellen's original plan was to have her firstborn be the vessel for Payman once he got a little older. However, he became resistant to what she was trying to do. When she had Annie, she couldn't put Payman into a female vessel. Charles was very aware of what was going on and what his mother's sinister plans were. Ellen's hobby was embroidery. She created custom doormats, and each doormat featured Payman's symbols or demotic instructions. Going mad over his knowledge, Charles was driven to suicide. He was 16 years old. He hung himself. His suicide not claimed His suicides claimed that the reason he wanted to commit suicide was because of his mother and her attempts to put people inside of him. After
Right.
the suicide, the relationship between Ellen and Annie became strained. Annie moved out at the age of 19 and met and married Stephen Graham. She met him during visits to psychiatric help after all of the events that she had growing up. They had their firstborn, Peter. Upon his birth, Ellen tries to get close to the family again. She sees Peter as the perfect vessel for Payman. However, Annie wouldn't let her mother back into her life or to even meet Peter. Stephen insisted that there is no contact between the two. However, in 2003, Annie got pregnant again. She gave birth in 2004 and birthed Charlie, a gender neutral name, in honor of her late brother. Ellen tried again to enter back into Annie's life, where Annie ultimately gave in. Annie states that Charlie's birth was strange. She even states that Charlie rarely cried as a baby. Since Payman is a demon with no human emotion, evidence suggests that Charlie is King Payman from the very start. Ari
Hmm.
Aster, the director, confirms in an interview with Variety magazine that the girl Charlie was displaced from the very beginning of birth by King Payman. Payman cannot be whole or complete with his powers in a female vessel.
Uh,
This explains some health complications such as a peanut allergy, including speculation of autism. Ellen decides to use Charlie as a temporary host at birth until she or the rest of the cult would find the perfect opportunity to transfer the demon into her older brother Peter. Ellen took care of Charlie as often as possible. She tried keeping her away from Annie. She would even breastfeed Charlie as well. This was a way for Ellen to slip black herbs into her meals. These black herbs in witchcraft and cult rituals are very popular. They are used to make a subject more accessible to the other side and ease the connection between demons and spirits. Ellen constantly treated Charlie like a boy and not to upset Payman. Ellen gifts Annie a necklace of Payman's symbol, just like she wears, and this is thought to be a connection between the two, even after her death. Since a young age, Annie is a known sleepwalker. When the kids are young enough to share a room, Annie, in a sleepwalking state, enters the room where they are sleeping. She covers herself and the kids in a flammable paint thinner. She then lights a match just as she awakens, as well as the kids. Annie is subconsciously at Payman's will, but her conscious mind is strong enough to resist. It is believed that her trauma as a kid and her marriage to a psychiatrist makes her mind very strong and hard for Payman to break. Psychological turmoil and heightened emotional vulnerability makes it easy for Payman to break through. Ellen continues to age and keep her cult lifestyle secret from her family. Towards the end of her life, Ellen is taken in to live with Annie and her family. She stays in an extra bedroom at the end of the hall, and in that bedroom it is later discovered that she carved a triangle into the wooden floor facing diagonal. It's implied that it's pointing northwest. These triangles are present throughout all rituals. As her body is failing her, Ellen writes a note to Annie. The note is an apology for all the things she could not tell her, however, never going into specifics. Ellen's health quickly declines and she is taken to hospice, where she passes away not long after. This happens in the spring of 2018. Thus, Hereditary begins.
I wish I would have known all that before I watched it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Again, I got all that information from a couple videos, some write-ups of the film. It's kind of cool to read that Ari Aster kind of broke the film down a little bit in different interviews and everything to not make it too ominous and not one single answer is out there. So I think the biggest takeaway too, a lot of people are confused about is Charlie essentially is Payman at birth. So we never actually get to meet the real Charlie. Payman can't fully take over her body as a vessel, but we never truly get the real Charlie. So R.I.P. Charlie,
So
you.
that's not like her.
It's not her.
Hmm.
Never got to know the real her. So, I mean, you found that a little helpful with kind of.
Oh my gosh, yes. They should have just written that at the beginning.
Well, there we
Like
go. We can
Star
just
Wars.
like Star
Dun,
Wars.
dun.
Oh God, can you imagine the music during that?
Oh my God. Yeah, that would have been helpful. And then the little tiny letters disappearing.
Oh no. All right, we're remaking the film here in 2024. When Hereditary and Star Wars combine.
That would have been so helpful to know going in.
Yeah, so that is the background. Payman is a demon that is often referred to in this entire film, and thus the movie begins. Yeah, so whenever you hit play on this film, we get the studio credits first, and we open on an obituary of Ellen Lee. So that's literally where we start the movie off. There's no real background. We just know that someone passed away. One thing I do want to tell you, I think you'll find funny, is a fun little trivia moment. The red band trailer. A red band trailer for a film is a trailer that can include violence, swearing, and or nudity. That it's approved for those types of audiences. So you wouldn't see a red band trailer unless you're in an R-rated film. So the red band trailer played before a kids movie. The movie was Peter Rabbit.
Oh my God.
This happened in Australia. The trailer was accidentally shown before the film
Oh
in the
my
mix of
God.
all the other trailers.
Shut up. My God.
And it's the red band trailer, so they probably went all out. I don't know what the red band trailer consisted of, but it was probably the most traumatic form of a preview that you could get for this film. So I guess halfway through this trailer playing, at first it was stated that parents kind of looked around the room like, is this for real? And then before you know it, parents and kids were running out of the theater screaming, scared. The theater apologized and gave everyone free passes to go see another movie on them. But
that's, oh my gosh, that's traumatizing. Those poor kids.
Yeah, hella awkward.
Wow.
We're just starting them early. It's fine.
Peter, and it's like Peter Rabbit.
Yeah, well, there is Peter in Hereditary, so I
I
feel like there's a
know, I
connection.
know.
Oh, Payman was trying to get all those kids in that theater.
Maybe
They
it
were
was
weak and
Payman.
vulnerable.
Maybe it was.
Might have been. It's kind of
Might have
creepy.
been.
All right, so the film opens up with an obituary. We slowly pan around a room and see a bunch of doll houses, miniature scale housing. We slowly zoom in onto a room, and I think this is a really cool effect. I don't know if you noticed this when you were first watching, but we slowly pan into the miniature model of the house, and very slowly the characters turn real in the room, and you realize you're in a real house, but it's the same exact room in full scale form.
I was like, I looked to Courtney at this point and I was like, "Does everything take place in a dollhouse?" Yeah, I
Ooh,
did.
wow, I wonder what the big twist is going to be. I bet you're there in a dollhouse.
They're in a dollhouse.
Oh,
uh,
shit. So here we're introduced to Peter. Good old Peter is still sleeping, and his dad, Steve. Steve walks into the room to get Peter up as they are going to be heading to the funeral. We assume that this funeral is going to be Ellen, the woman I talked about for 5 minutes who is trying to force payment onto her wonderful family. He seems to be waking everybody up. He goes outside to a treehouse where his daughter, Charlie, is sleeping without a
mhm.
heater or anything.
Yep.
He even states it's really cold out here, so she needs no heater or anything to sleep in that attic. Now it all makes sense, huh, Lauren?
Oh my God. They were in the treehouse.
Hmm.
Wait, she was sleeping in the treehouse?
Yep,
And that's okay. And that's where Annie was sleeping too.
that's where Annie was sleeping too.
Not,
However, Charlie didn't need any heaters. Annie at least had the heaters with her.
I thought they were like in
Mm.
the freaking up attic. I don't know.
It's okay.
This is all making sense.
Oh man, you're gonna
Oh,
rewatch
thank
this
God
film,
I
aren't
have
you?
you, Dave. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is what this podcast is for.
All right, so she was sleeping in the tree house, no heater.
Uh, yep. So he basically says, it's time to get up. We need to go. We need to get ready. We quickly cut to the actual funeral itself. Annie is giving a little eulogy about her mother, talking about how secretive her mother was. She felt like she was never close to her mother. She wanted to be. She gives a very brief background on some of the stuff that she struggled with growing up with her mother, and also mentions her being a very private and secretive woman, but she would be happy to know that there was a lot of strangers in the room. Do you know who those strangers would be, Lauren?
They're probably not strangers.
Hmm.
They're
Other cult
probably
members.
cult.
Hmm.
Probably.
I
Wait,
think you're right, Lauren.
do we see them later?
We
There's
do.
so many things I didn't put two and two together in this movie. The one guy, this creepy smile guy,
Hmm.
I was like,
Yep.
that's something.
That is something. Yeah.
That's
So Charlie is actually sitting, in the pews with her family, listening to her mother's speech, and she makes a little sound,
Mhm.
like that little nervous tick that she does. That nervous tick is definitely important throughout the run of this film. Leaves a little timestamp for us as well. She goes up to the casket to see her grandmother. She notices the necklace with the payment symbol around her neck. Of course, she doesn't know what that is. She happens to look back. She feels someone staring at her, and she sees a man in the corner of the room smiling at her in a very creepy way.
Yeah,
Yeah, creepy smile.
definitely
Um,
creepy.
So we hear the clucking, the little tick from Charlie, and we signify this as a weird tick that she might have. We go back to the house, and here we are introduced to Rex, the good little dog that runs around their house all the time.
Hmm.
Rex, such a cute little dog.
Yeah, so cute.
We get more background on what Annie does for a living. She makes little miniature model homes and people, and we can see that she kind of recreates moments in her life. A hospice room, she's visiting her mother who is passing
Hmm.
away. So we start to learn that this is her job, that she is working on doing an art gallery, and she's trying to get everything together. However, with the passing of her mother, she kind of had to take a break from it, and they mentioned that she might be a little bit behind. Good old Steve is checking on the family, making sure they're all okay, and Annie is having a conversation with Charlie. Charlie talks about how she doesn't really feel anything about her grandmother passing away. Um, Annie reminds her, grandma, always really has really taken to you. She always treated you as one of her own. And Charlie responds with, well, she's always treated me like a boy. She always wanted me to be a
Oh,
boy.
I never caught that.
Yeah, Annie says, and she wouldn't even let me breastfeed you because she wanted to feed you. She wanted to be the one feeding you. So
Okay,
there,
so she did that? She breastfed The grandma?
So I think it's assumed that she would feed her bottled milk.
Okay.
Yeah.
With those
Um,
herbs in them.
with those herbs in them.
Yeah.
Yes. So perfect. So Annie kind of talks about how her mother took over raising Charlie. So there seems to be this disconnect with Charlie and Annie because of this. Annie assures her, I was a tomboy when I was growing up, so there's nothing wrong with, having felt that way. So Charlie then mentions, well, who's going to take care of me now? And Annie's like, well, I'm your mother. Of course, I'll be taking care of you. I love you. And she says, well, who's going to take care of me when you die?
Dun dun.
So, kind of disturbing to hear that from your child who you don't really have the best connection with. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. So Annie heads over to another room and she starts going through boxes of her mother's stuff. She finds an old photo album of her and her family growing up. She also finds a book on spiritualism. She's kind of looking at it concerning, and she finds a letter inside that book from her mom that says, my darling, dear, beautiful Annie, forgive me for all the things I could not tell you. Please don't hate me and try not to despair your losses. You will see me in the end, and you will see that they were worth it. Our sacrifice will pale next to the rewards. Love, Mommy.
Love, mommy.
What a
Yeah.
cute little note.
No. Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Not a cute
So,
note.
so Annie decides, that's enough for today. She puts all the stuff back into the box and she starts heading out of the room. But as she's heading out of the room, something catches her eye in the corner. Do you remember what she sees?
She thinks she sees the ghost of her mother.
The ghost of her mother standing in the corner of the room. One of the things I love about this film, too, is it doesn't rely too heavy on big, loud jump scares. It's all very minimal and it likes to kind of play tricks with your mind. So the
Yeah.
film is the film is shot very dark. So you almost, if you're not looking directly in the spot where she's standing, you might not notice her right away.
I definitely did not notice her right away. And Courtney's like, do you not see her? I'm like, no, I
I could
don't.
see Courtney being like, "Hello," but I think that's very intentional. I've seen people talk about how some of these things they didn't notice that you really have to be paying attention and staring directly in the right spot. And I think that right there is genuine horror. Like, what is in the corner of your room at nighttime? If you, are
Okay.
you are
Nothing.
are you mis-
Nothing is.
are you mistaking a chair with a jacket on it as a person
Oh
standing there?
my.
So when Annie sees this, she stops and stares at her for a second, or what she thinks is her mother, and then she flips on the light. As soon as she flips on the light, she is no longer
Nothing.
there.
Yeah.
One of the things I also love about the scene is in a lot of movies, you see the possible ghost, the camera pans back to the person who's seeing it, and they flip the light on, and then it goes back to where that person was and that person's gone. However, the camera stays on the grandmother and flips the light, and it's gone in the same exact instant. So what you're looking at is literally gone. So you're kind of seeing it from Annie's perspective. She's there in the dark and gone when the light's on.
Yeah. She's like,
Ah,
must be crazy.
must be crazy. Mom's haunting me. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
She then goes in back into her room and turns one of the models around, and the model shows her mother trying to breastfeed her child. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that her mother wasn't actually breastfeeding young Charlie. If she was, cool. I don't know how to respond to that, so do with that as you will. Here we have the next day. Charlie's in class. She's drawing some pictures, not really paying attention to what the teachers have to say. Just at that moment, a bird flies into the window and makes everyone in the classroom startled. However, she doesn't react at all. Kids are all freaked out. Bird hit the window. Cool. We also cut to Peter. Peter's in class staring at who we assume is his crush. Her name. He's not listening to what the teacher's saying. He's more sucked into, staring at the back of her head and her ass and her jeans. Real cool. The teacher's talking about escaping fate. I think this is symbolic of Payman being in this family on the hereditary bloodline and not really being able to escape what's about to happen. So I think that's kind of cool to catch on to something like that. This kind of just as a little background of Peter in school and the idea of the symbolism of what they're teaching. We then cut to Charlie outside, and she pulls out a
Ugh, I
nice little
can't.
pair of scissors.
This is
She
the first
finds
time I texted you
it
when,
is. Yeah, I
yeah, when
mean,
I was watching this.
yeah, she finds the bird that flew into the window. She walks over to it, pulls out some scissors and slowly chops away at the bird's neck.
Okay, I couldn't watch this part. I was like, are you shitting me? Is this happening right now?
You've never done that as a child?
No. Have you? You probably
No.
have.
Oh my God. That would be some Ted Bundy shit.
I'm like, you probably have. Just kidding.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
No.
no, I've never done that before. But Charlie has, and we get to watch her do it and just slowly snip away at this neck, and then she puts the bird's head right in her pocket.
Right in her
All,
pocket
all while eating a chocolate candy bar
with no nuts.
with no nuts, thankfully. Hmm. She then sees a woman standing across the street staring at her. The woman kind of waves at her. This is obviously, at this point, from all the information I've given you guys, we know this to be a person in the cult
So
watching
she
Charlie.
she was like a cult. Yeah.
Yeah, you actually see her. You actually see her again later in the film. Um,
Okay.
Same with
Question.
Smiley Man. So,
So do they like worship Payman? Is that
mhm.
okay?
Yep.
So do they worship Charlie then?
So they know, yes, because they know that Payman is there, and they know that Payman needs to find that male host. So they're keeping Payman safe in Charlie. So I think it's kind of assumed that these cult members have been following her around, or they're always around, making sure that she's okay and fulfilling the prophecy, if you will.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Back at the house, Annie is a little creeped out. She's thinking about, her seeing her dead mother last night in the corner, and she goes up into the bedroom because she goes into her mother's room where she had stayed right before going to hospice, and she had heard some footsteps like you did upstairs not too long ago. You're welcome.
No,
And
no, no.
she checks out the room. There we see the triangle that's carved into the floor. Annie checks in with her husband, and she's like, did you go into my mom's room? She's assuming she's just hearing things, or that Steve possibly just happened to go in there for whatever reason. He says no and kind of let that go there.
Mhm.
And he decides to tell Steve that she's gonna go to the movies. She just wants to go by herself. Doesn't want anyone to go with her. So what we find out as an audience is that she is not going to the movies. She is actually going to a self-help group, the focus a grief counseling group called Losing a Loved One. Here we get a little bit more information about the relationship between her and her mother. She talks about the things I talked about before about her brother hanging himself and dealing with different types of schizophrenia. She also talks about also blaming her mother for all of those things and keeping her children away from, her mother and the possible things that had happened to her during her childhood. She basically says that she doesn't want to put her family through any stress, especially the type of stress that she went through. So this is a good scene for us as an audience to get some of that background. At this point, what were you thinking, Lauren? Were you like,
No. No, at this point, is this where she meets Joan?
not yet?
She doesn't meet Joan yet.
Nope. This kind of just establishes. I think this scene is for us to get a little background on her and her mom, and for
To me, I was like, okay, well, now I'm thinking suspicious, like very suspicious. Oh God, suspiciously.
hey, we
Did I
love new
say it
words here.
correctly? Yeah. About
Yeah,
the
perfect.
grandmother and why all these people around her are dying.
Yeah,
Like I felt very like, okay, something's going on with the grandma.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely some stuff going on with Grandma, and we cut to Peter, who's in his room texting on his phone, as every teenage boy does. He's also smoking from a bong, getting a little high, and he receives a text that says, "Holy shit, huge party tomorrow at Aaron's house. Bring your dick." No, sorry, bro. We're gonna leave that behind today.
You sound
Kids
like
today.
an old fuddy duddy
I
right
do
now,
sound like an old
Dave.
fuddy-duddy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just start saying "bring your dick" every time I text people and see what happens. So this scene in particular is setting up the party that he's about to go to, and while he's smoking, he blows the smoke out the window. When he does this, we have a wide view shot of the window, and from the ground below, we actually see someone watching him. But all we
What?
s- but all we see is the breath of the person because it's cold outside.
Okay. Totally missed that. Totally
hmm
missed that.
So, fun fact: throughout the movie, very gotta really be looking again. Throughout the whole movie, in a lot of scenes, you can find people hanging out outside of their house, watching them,
Like
waiting.
one of the cult members.
Yep.
Do you think Annie was suspicious at all?
I do think Annie was suspicious. I think I think she was suspicious, but I think she ignored all of it. And I think at this point, I think once her mom dies, she starts to very slowly accept it. And I also think that this is the beginning of her mind not being as strong, which is why Payman's really starting to
Be able to seep in and
seep in. Yeah. In the meantime, we have Charlie over here. You remember Toy Story, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Remember Sid, the next door neighbor who
Yes.
destroyed the
Yeah.
toys, and like it's kind of what Charlie's doing in this scene, I think. Charlie
Yes.
has a
Yes.
bunch of a bunch of random objects, and she's putting I think it's like a pill bottle,
Mhm.
and it's like toothpicks and stuff, and she's like putting the dead bird's head that she decapitated, putting it on there. So she's building these things. I don't know what she's doing, but I mean, art.
It's art like what was that art that we with
Oh,
the with the I almost said Rose,
with Kate Winslet. Yeah.
Clementine.
Yes, in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
The
Mind, Clementine did the
potato art.
potato art. Well, so in the lovely Eternal Sunshine, we have potato art. In the wonderful Hereditary, we have decapitated birds on pill bottles. It's not your regular movie, folks.
Oh.
So this is the first time we see a strange light follow around.
Is it the blue one?
The blue light. There's a blue light that kind of shimmers in a way throughout the room, and it catches Charlie's eye. Charlie follows it. At first, she's like, "Did I just see something? Something weird, random?" And then she starts to notice it, and as it moves across the room, it's almost like a square, like it takes up the entire room. Wants her to focus on something, it kind of zooms in and becomes like a dot. Charlie stands up following the light once she sees it, and it goes out the window, so we know that she's looking at something outside. She goes outside, she takes the decapitated body, so just the body of the dead bird,
Oh, I didn't realize she took the
and
body.
she takes the body and she leaves her house and starts walking. So the light led her to go outside. So she brings the body of the bird and starts
Mhm.
walking outside with it. As she's walking, she's going towards the woods in the background, and it's muddy out. And next to her, where she's walking, there are footprints that are
I
heading
did
towards the woods.
did see that there were already footprints.
Mm. Dun dun
Interesting,
dun.
interesting.
So as Shirley's outside checking out the world, whatever the hell she's doing, we have Annie inside working on her art, and Peter comes in and asks if he can borrow the car for tonight because he wants to go to a super rad party, and he's going to take his deck,
Super
just in
bad.
case you didn't know.
He is gonna take that.
Yes. So basically, he asks for the car. Annie tells him, "Is there going to be drinking there?" He's like, "Well, yeah, but I'm not going to drink." And she says, "Well, you can take your sister," which is kind of weird because you're going to a
Yeah.
party. There's going to be drinking there. She's well aware of that. Yes, he promised that he wouldn't drink, but as a parent, are you going to believe that and let him take the
No.
daughter? So I see the idea behind it. This scene, or the idea behind what happens, gets a lot of criticism because people were like, well, as a parent, you wouldn't want your child to take your other younger child to a party if you know there's going to be drinking or not. But I feel like everything that happens in this movie, in a weird way, is just a slow working of Payman and the fate that all of them are going to eventually meet. So I'm not necessarily saying that Payman's making her say this, but I think her mind, as I said, is becoming weaker. Some of the things that she's saying, she's not fully thinking clearly. What do you think?
Yeah, I was like, "Why?" I was confused as to why she was like, "Bring your sister," because I didn't realize that the daughter was, like, supposed to be 13. I thought she was, like,
Hmm.
9 or something.
She does
Shows
look
how
a
much
lot
I
younger
know.
than 13.
Yes,
She
shows how
does.
much I yeah. So I was like, "Why is he taking his, like, 9-year-old sister to the" I don't know. I was like, "This is weird."
Nope, just his creepy 13-year-old sister, I guess.
Yeah.
Cuts back outside. Charlie is led to a field where she sees someone sitting in that open field with fire around them. It's an
Mhm.
older person. Charlie then makes her little nervous tick sound as she's
So
staring
what
at her.
is that really?
I think I might be wrong, so no one could come at my throat. I think it's Payman. I think it's him trying to speak through his vessel. So, and we'll get back to that in certain scenes where that sound comes around. Do you find that sound annoying? Because it definitely pops up a lot in the movie.
Um, did I find it annoying?
Yeah.
No.
No.
No. So interestingly enough, I did do a tidbit of research and they said that it was Charlie Charlie in her essence, who's buried deep within her. It's her trying to speak.
So I actually did read that too, and I think that's a good theory as well. I definitely think that works too. Actually, we'll definitely get into that too because that's definitely a conversation, a debate. So is it Payman or is it Charlie?
Hmm.
That's a good thing to go off of for sure. So yeah, we'll jump into that a little bit more later. Remind me if I forget because I'm old and reading
I'm
these
older than
kids.
you, Dave. Thanks for
Okay,
that.
well you're welcome. I'm just kidding. You're
Ah.
so young and youthful. So right when she makes the sound, she sees this weird person in the middle of the field with fire. Annie comes out and says, "Get in the house. Why are you walking around barefoot?" And Charlie's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mom." Back in the house, Annie lets Charlie know, "You're going to a party with your brother," and she couldn't be less excited.
Yeah, she
Kind of
doesn't
like
want to go.
she's like, "I don't want to go to this thing," and she's
Just
like,
to
"Well, you're
play
going to
with your
go."
pill bottle and bird.
Yeah, Mom, I have art to do just like you do. So, cut to the car. Of course, no one in the situation won except for Annie. Peter is driving to this party with his sister in the car with him. Now, on our way to the party, I don't know if you noticed, but we start with the interior shot of the car with the kids, and then we cut to an exterior shot as the car drives by. And what comes into frame? Do you remember?
Mm-mm.
Hmm, the light pole that becomes very important here
See,
shortly.
yeah, I mean, if I watched it again, I think I would catch a lot of this stuff, but like I didn't know it was about to come. And like every single scene, as Courtney said, one scene really, really traumatized her. So after each scene, I'm like, was it that scene? And she's like, no. I'm like, was it
Was it the
that scene?
decapitated bird?
That's what I thought. I was like, was it like when she snipped the head off of that bird? And she's like, no, not yet. Oh
Girl, that
God.
was like Disney Channel compared to what
I
happens in the
know.
rest of the movie. So yeah, so the car drives past, we have the exterior shot, and we have a light pole right in the center of our view. We linger on it for maybe 2 seconds max. However, in the center of that light pole, carved into the light pole, is payment
Is a
symbol.
symbol.
Hmm.
Oh, damn. Yeah. I didn't
So,
catch a lot of this. Yeah.
uh,
I was just in my like, oh God. Like I was in my anticipatory. Is that a word?
I think it sounds great.
My
If
anticipatory state.
honestly, if it's not a word, I 100% I sign off on that word.
Thank you. It makes me sound smart.
You are
Anticipatory.
so smart.
Anticipatory.
We're smart and old. So I'm just kidding. You're very young.
Well, you're very young. We're only a
No.
year apart. It's okay.
Yes. It's fine. We're young. Yeah. So symbols in this big light pole at this moment in time means nothing to us. Cut to the party. We finally made it to the party, and I'll tell you what. This is one rad party.
So cool.
This girl is in the
Just
kitchen
chopping nuts.
chopping walnuts, but she's looking around. I wish this was visual for people because she is just chopping up this set of walnuts. She's going so fast, literally not paying attention. And I'm like, girl, you're about to chop off your hand or do something. I don't even know.
I was like, this is such a weird thing. And I didn't obviously put it, well, we'll get there. But I was
Yeah,
like, why is she just like a teen party? Like,
yeah.
let me chop some nuts. I don't know.
I'm gonna bring my dick as long as you chop the walnuts.
Good one,
Oh,
Dave.
yeah.
Love
Kids
that
today and
one.
their super cool parties. Oh shit.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I mean, honestly, this house is super nice. I would love to go to a party here.
Oh, yeah.
I would chop walnuts with everyone. To be honest, it's pretty cool.
Did look pretty
So,
nice.
yeah. So Peter's crush, Bridget, is at this party, and all he wants to do is talk to her. He wants to do a little flirting and see what happens. So he tells Charlie to go off and do your own thing. He sees that they just made a cake in the kitchen, and he says, "Hey,
Yeah.
you like cake? Go eat some cake." And she's like, "I don't want to," and he's like, "Go eat cake." So. Uh, Peter searches around this party. He finds his girl Bridget, and she's like, "Hey, you want to go smoke?" He's like, "Yeah, let's go smoke." So now he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be alone in a room with her," and they end up walking into a room with other girls as they're watching on a laptop an old silent film of people getting their head chopped off.
So many things I missed.
You're going in for part. You're going.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say it 10 more times before you watch it again. So he's like, "Cool, we're in a room with other people," and she's like, "Yo, Peter's got weed." Cut back to his sister. She is devouring this cake. She has never had cake this good before.
She's loving the cake.
She is loving the cake.
Did
So as
look
she's
like
eating
good cake.
it did look like good cake. So as she's eating the cake, she starts to act a little weird. She kind of like scratches at her throat a little bit. The audience at this point are just kind of like, okay, cool. She has an itchy neck. Uh, Earlier in the film at the
Mhm.
funeral, I forgot to mention, she is eating a candy bar at the funeral, and Annie speaks to Steve and says, "There's no nuts in that, right? I didn't bring the EpiPen."
Yeah.
Real quick moment of dialogue. You catch it, cool. If not, whatever. However, it gives us a little bit of background. So now we cut to her. She's still kind of clearing her throat a little bit. She's trying to drink a little bit of water. She keeps trying. So at this point in time, we definitely know something's wrong. Cut back to the room. Kids are ripping a big old bong, and Charlie walks into the room to see Peter. She looks a little. Her face looks a little puffy. She has some red markings on her face, and she's wheezing. And she says, "I think my throat's getting bigger." So
Mhm.
as I'm watching this in the theater, I'm like, oh, like just that the idea of like feeling like your throat getting bigger and not being able to breathe, like that's scary.
Mhm.
So I was kind of like, ugh. So Peter freaks out. Obviously, he's stoned out of his mind, but he has to get his sister to the hospital.
Mhm.
So he runs her out of the house, and they jump into the car. He kind of in the middle of nowhere. This film was filmed in Utah, so it's kind of like a desert-looking area. So there's not a lot around. So he's driving really fast on this back road, driving. We're getting points of view of the road, points of view of him, and points of view of Charlie in the back seat, literally gasping for air, like
Mhm.
suffocating. Like you can feel the suffocation. That's how good this actress is portraying this. As she's trying to breathe, she rolls the window down and sticks her head out. Peter tells her, "Get your head back inside." Just to happen to see a dead deer in the middle of the road. As he swerves, all of a sudden, that light pole
Mhm.
is there. The one we
Yep.
saw. Poor Charlie has her head out the window as he swerves, and in that moment of the swerve, we hear big, yeah. So, as a kid, I used to always put my hand really far out the window when my mom was driving, and my mom would yell at me and tell me to put my arm back in the window because I could lose my arm. Well, I wish my mom would have been there for Charlie to tell her to put her head back in
Yeah.
because Charlie didn't lose an arm, she lost the head.
She lost her head. Yeah.
So, this sequence in the film, from her scratching at her throat all the way until I tell you, had me just feeling some weird type of way.
Mhm.
I've seen this movie 4 times, and each time I still just have this unsettled feeling. I don't know why.
Yeah.
He slams on his brakes, and dead silence, except for his breathing that has become very rapid. We, as an audience, the camera is focused purely on his face, and very slowly you start to see sweat, you start to see tears. He's trying not to break. You can tell. I mean, incredible acting
Mhm.
from him. I feel like because we're stuck on him, I feel like I was driving the car. Like
Yeah.
that's what this scene makes me feel like. And we just sit with him for what feels like a solid minute. Slowly looks up at the rearview mirror, but then looks back down. He
Mhm.
doesn't want to admit what he knows happened to
Yeah.
himself. How frightening. Heavy shit, guys.
It was
Heavy
heavy,
shit.
yeah.
It was.
I was like, I honestly couldn't believe. I'm like, is he gonna drive home right now? I was like, wait.
Yeah, so Peter slowly lets go of the brake and drives off. He drives home. I'm trying to make this as dramatic as possible. Is it working?
Yes, it is.
Mm.
It's working. Yes.
So this scene haunted me, so I wanted everyone to be haunted by just listening to it. So he drives home, parks his car in front of the house. He walks inside, just like you would if you're just coming home from a party. Walks up to his bedroom, and we're slowly following him. I mean, it's a steady shot. We're with him. We're with him in this traumatic experience. We go back to his bedroom, and he gets into bed. Just then, the camera turns bright. The sun is now out. We're still fixated on his face, and he is just staring at us, wide awake. Clearly did not sleep at night. He looks very weathered, his eyes still filled with some tears. He then hears his mother outside of his bedroom door speaking to her husband, where she says, "I'm running out to get some wood."
Mhm.
We as an audience are like, God. We hear
Well,
Steve say,
I was wondering if the body was still in there
yeah, there's,
because
I mean,
impact might have, I don't
kind of
know.
pulled her back. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess hopefully, yeah. So we hear Steve, the husband, say, I'm good, sweetheart, just drive safe. Meanwhile, we're still just fixated on Peter's face. She said, okay, be back in 20. We hear the door open, still fixated on Peter's face, just knowing what's about to happen. We hear a car door open up from outside, and then a very loud scream.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. Immediately, real quick jump cut, listening to that scream, and then a real quick shot of Charlie's head on the side of the
Yeah.
road being eaten by ants. What I think is great about this scene is they keep everything is just in your mind. You know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You probably know what the aftermath looks like, but they never
Mm-hmm.
show it to you. So you're like, thank you. We never got to see it. What's traumatic about it is that you're stuck with Peter the whole time with that awkward feeling in the bottom of your stomach that just knowing what's going to happen,
Yeah.
still not seeing it, and even just hearing the conversation between Annie and Steve, still not seeing it, and then just hearing her screams.
Even
So
like the night he comes home, they say, I think they're like talking about like, oh, good, they're home. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep, yeah, you're right. Yeah, so as an audience, we're like, okay, thank you. We'll just stick with this traumatic, not seeing anything, and then that jump cut after Annie's scream, we cut right to that decapitated head, side of the road, ants devouring at the skin, at the
Yeah.
flesh. And then does a quick jump cut back to Annie and Steve. Annie is on the floor. Toni Collette was snubbed of an Oscar for this film. She was not nominated and she didn't win. Neither. You can't win if you weren't nominated, and she wasn't nominated. Absolutely ridiculous.
Was she
Deserved to
nominated for
win.
anything for this movie?
Smaller award ceremonies like horror movie type.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the Academy doesn't
I
really.
know.
It sucks. It really
I
sucks.
know. They don't
Uh,
really like take into consideration horror movies at all.
yeah, and I think we live in a different time of movie making where horror movies have a way deeper rooted meaning than just slash slash tits slash kill. And I think this movie is a good case in point for that. Regardless, Toni Collette's acting, if this was just a family drama, Toni Collette's acting is phenomenal.
Oh, it's so good. She's
Her
so good in this
crying,
movie.
her crying and screaming, begging for Charlie to come back and for her to be the one that dies instead. I just want to die. I just want to die.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh,
Yeah.
Toni, you're making me feel things, girl.
Yeah,
Uh,
Tony, there was another scene that we'll get to, and I'll tell you which one it is, that
oh
I'm like,
yes.
holy shit, this woman.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as Annie's having her breakdown, we slowly pan out to Peter, who's standing in the hallway, listening to his mom react this way, and then we do another quick cut to the actual burial itself, and she is still screaming and crying, rightfully so. And as the coffin's being lowered into the ground, we as the viewer, as a camera, we are being lowered into the ground as well.
Mm-hmm.
So 40 minutes in, R.I.P. Charlie.
Yeah.
Marketing for this film made Charlie the center of attention. Even when I sent something to you, and you're like, oh no, another creepy kid movie.
Well, and I don't think Charlie's even on I think it's just the mom, the Annie, Steve, and Charlie. I don't even think the son's in it.
So
Am I wrong?
there's two main posters for Hereditary. One is like the family portrait, which is all four of them, and then there is a picture of Annie and Charlie, and it's
Really?
Annie standing in the background, hovering over Charlie, Charlie below, and then you see the severed head of the bird and like the little contraption that she
Oh,
put the bird
yeah.
on.
I don't know. I feel like there was like one where no, no, yeah. So there's one with just Toni Collette and her.
Yeah, is that the one with like the bird at the bottom, like
Yeah.
on a table in front of them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did great marketing for this film to think that Charlie's like the main character, and then in like Scream fashion and Psycho fashion, just kind of
Yep.
like, meh, Percy thought I was going to be one of the main
Like a Drew
characters.
Barrymore.
Yes, the
Yeah.
good old Drew Barrymore. Millie Shapiro, you have been Drew.
Hmm. Well, she got to stay in this movie a lot longer than Drew Barrymore did. So,
That's true. Yeah, she got an almost solid 40 minutes here.
yeah.
Drew had a solid 10. R.I.P.
Hmm.
Casey Becker.
Shit.
You want to know something sad,
Doing-
Lauren? Well, your microphone's dancing. I can. You sound so good.
Why is it not lit up?
Well, Payman's there.
Come on, Payman.
He
I
doesn't
want
like
to
the light.
find
Oh, now it's making
Payman.
a staticky noise. There, we're
Is it?
back. It's okay. We're back. We're good.
Okay. Oh
You're
my
crystal
god.
clear. Oh my gosh, you're gonna be in the dark soon.
So weird.
Payman's at work,
There we
ladies and gentlemen.
go. Okay, it's lit back
Oh,
up now.
we're lit up. We're lit, guys. We're
We're
lit.
lit.
Bring
Oh
your
my.
dick. Shit. Okay, so back to the film.
Yeah.
Um, so at this point, I think every idea that you had about this film was just tossed out the window. Nope.
God, that's awful. Did you mean to say
No, but as it was coming out, I was like, oh boy, back up.
God?
I was like, back it up, like Peter should have done to get that head.
God.
Just trying to make light of this very heavy film,
I
guys.
know.
Okay, so Charlie is dead. She's goner.
She's gone.
And now we have the aftermath. Peter is lying in his room, unable to sleep. He happens to look out the window and sees the attic, or not the attic, the treehouse that Charlie liked to sleep in, and he sees a light turn on inside that treehouse. So that's cool. Meanwhile, Steve is in Charlie's room looking through her sketchbook, and her sketchbook is pictures of decapitated bird, a bird wearing a crown, normal things that kids draw. We then see that the reason why there is a light on in the treehouse is because Annie is sleeping in a sleeping bag in the treehouse, just like Charlie liked to do. However, unlike Charlie, she has two big ass heaters in there because it is cold as fuck outside. I cut back to Peter, who is in classroom now. Teacher's talking. He's not fully paying attention, and he's kind of dazed, kind of going in and out of listening and focusing. He looks like he hasn't slept in days.
I'm like, why is this kid at school?
Right, and as he's kind of drifting off a little bit, and he kind of tilts his head up, and he's in the classroom, and as he's tilting his head up, we start to see a rear view mirror.
Yeah.
And then he looks back down. So very
He's haunted. He's very haunted.
Then
and
it cuts to him.
Again.
Yeah. Why are you in school? Well, then it cuts to him. Then it cuts to him out in the track, like the football field. He's underneath the bleachers smoking with his friends. So do you think right now is the time to get really stoned here, buddy? So as he's
trying
smoking,
to numb his pain.
Yeah, man, this kid's never gonna escape this stuff. So as his friends are talking, one of them starts to notice that Peter is starting to breathe awkwardly, kind of heavy, almost like a panic attack. His friend says, "Are you all right?" And he mentions that he feels like his throat is closing, that like he's having a reaction to something, but very similar to what was happening with Charlie. So I think this was his subconscious way of just dealing with the trauma of what happened, and he got into his head because he was high, and he's never gonna escape this. So.
No.
Comes to after school. It's dark outside. He's riding his bike because he's probably never going to drive a car again for the rest of his life. As he goes back into the house, the camera pans over and we see someone in the car, and it is Annie, and she is just sitting in the driver's seat, watching Peter get the nerve to go into the house. Like Peter's almost scared to go into the house. Like he, every time he comes home, he's gonna have to face his mom and his dad. And as he goes into the house, she then turns on the car, drives away, and we see her at another one of her meetings where she's going to talk about grieving and coping with it. However, she panics a little bit and decides she doesn't want to do it, and she starts to drive away until we see someone flag her down in the parking lot. This person that is flagging her down is Joan.
I will say it's never a good thing when you see this actress because
you're so right.
It's never, you're like, she's so nice. You're like, no, don't be fooled. Every time you see this actress, she plays like evil so well. It's so weird.
She does. When you, like Lauren said, when you see Ann Dowd come on the screen, you just know that there's some sort of weird evil force behind what she's doing. And every character that she plays is similar in terms of that's usually how it turns out. However, her portrayal and her acting is so good that it's never the same. Does that make sense? Ann Dowd. All right, so Ann Dowd's here. She plays Joan, and she was like, "What are you doing? Why are you leaving? I recognize you from a few months ago, and I thought we could talk more." She talks about how she's there talking about her son who passed away, Uh,
Son and grandson.
son and grandson. Yes, yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
So she's there. Joan is there to talk about her. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you. Stop freaking me out, Dave.
I'm just trying to scare everybody here. You know what I mean?
You.
Joan said that the PC was disconnected.
I, the PC.
Could be me. Well, I don't know. It says that. Whatever. I guess you can hear me. That's fine then, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. Well, just wanted to take a little break there for a second, you know? Okay. But back to Joan. She's talking about how her son and grandson passed away. That's why she goes to these meetings. She remembers seeing Annie from a few months back talking about her mother who passed away. And this is when Annie's like, well, my daughter just passed away as well. She's a little worked up. They then talk about how, this doesn't make it easier, but it's nice to know that you're not lonely, that it's nice that someone is there to, be with you and
Mhm.
understand where you're coming from and be able to talk about it. So they exchange some numbers, and Joan's like, "I'll see you around." So at this point, Annie's just kind of like, "Well, whatever, crazy. I'm not doing this grief thing."
Can I ask a
Heads back
weird
home.
question?
Yeah.
Where's Pyman at this point?
Okay. So Payman is
Payman.
that's okay.
Payman. Wait, what did I say? Pyman?
Payman. He is the demon who
Payman.
delivers pies to your front door.
Wait, where's Payman right now? He's not with Charlie, so he's just floating in the universe.
I think so. That's actually a good question. Yeah, Payman's trying to find out where he should go.
You mean Pyman?
Payman, yes. Yeah, Payman's
Yes.
trying to figure it out, and Payman's watching him try to figure it out so he can go there. Yep. So basically, we're back home. She didn't want to talk to Joan, so she heads back home really quick. Here we jump to good old Peter, who's still wide awake, not really sleeping very well. He's lying there, and then he hears the beautiful sound, makes him jump. Automatically, he's like, okay, that's creepy. That's what my sister does. He looks into the corner of the room, and he sees a chair with something in it, and that's it. What did we see? What did he see? We don't know. Was it just the chair? Was it just that? So now these little creepy things are starting to happen. We heard the cluck sound, which was, we assume, Payman floating around in the universe,
Or his sister trying to
or
make
Charlie
contact. Yeah.
trying to make contact. Absolutely right. So we're back to Annie now, and she is in her little office space making her little miniature models. She ends up spilling her paint, and the paint runs onto the piece of paper that Joan gave her with Joan's number on it.
Uh-huh.
Fate. hmm So
Yeah.
yeah, this reminds her, oh, I should give Joan a call. We assume she calls Joan as we cut to her running into an apartment complex. She comes to a door that has a little doormat in front of it, similar to the one that her mother also has. It says Joni on it. So she goes by Joni. Joni answers the door, lets her in. And here they're just kind of chit-chatting a little bit. She's talking about, kind of cut forward a little bit as they're deep in their conversation. They're talking about some traumatic things that happened, the people that passed away in their life, their feelings. And she kind of gives a little bit of backstory here. Do you remember like the backstories that she told?
About her son and grandson drowning?
Yes.
No.
Yep. She talks
Yes.
about
Okay.
that. One thing that also happens in this scene. So Joan made tea.
Mm-hmm.
Annie is drinking the
Oh
tea,
no.
and
Shit.
she reaches her fingers into her mouth and pulls out a piece of something from the drink, and it's a part of an herb. She kind of like looks at it
Shit.
like, what the hell? And when she
She's
sets the
doing the
coffee mug,
same thing.
when she sets the coffee mug down, Joan kind of looks at the coffee mug and then looks back up real sinister to Annie. So we as an audience at this point in time also have no idea what that's all about. Joan goes on to talk about how, you just need to, talk about these things, and it's okay to grieve. And that's kind of the point of this film. Then Annie kind of flips the script a little bit and says, my kids were scared of me for a long time because when they were younger, as I mentioned earlier, Annie now was talking about when she was sleepwalking and went into the kids' room and poured paint thinner all over them and then lit a match. And as she lights the match, she comes to, as well as the kids. Peter never really had a good relationship with her after this moment because he saw it as his mom trying to kill him, pretty
Well, I
much.
think the paint thinner part was in a dream.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's one of those. Did it happen? Did it not happen?
But
And Peter,
she woke up to lighting the match, right? She was
Yes.
actually lighting a match. Yeah. Yeah.
So she's telling this story to Joan, and Joan's is kind of like, interesting. Back home, Annie's still working on her art. Her husband Steve walks into the room, and he sees that her new section that she's
Yeah.
working on is the car accident scene. I mean, she has the model of Charlie in the back seat. She has a head on the ground. She has the light pole. I mean, it's, he's just kind of looking at her like, why are you
Yeah.
doing these types
I
of
think he
things?
said, "What the fuck?" I think that's what he said. The
What the
hiccup just
fuck,
then.
Annie?
I think
What
he
the
did
fuck,
say
Annie?
that.
No, I definitely think you're right. He then tells her, you gotta stop working on this stuff. It's time.
God, the most uncomfortable dinner in the face of the universe.
This might
Yeah.
go down in history as one of the best family dinner scenes ever. And by best, I mean most uncomfortable and
Yeah.
realistic of a broken family. Peter thanks his dad for making a delicious meal.
Hmm.
Annie kind of scoffs. This scene. He basically says, "You okay, Mom?" Because she made that sound, and she's like, "What do you mean? Am I okay?" And
Hmm.
he's like, "Is there something on your mind?" And she's kind of playing around there with her food, and she's like, "Is there something on your mind?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. It just seems like there's something you might want to say." This is kind of giving into the idea that he knows that his mom, is very upset and maybe blames him for the death of her daughter.
Right.
And she's like what? What do you mean? Why do you think that something's wrong? And why are you sneering at me like that? Don't sneer at me like that. And he was like, I didn't sneer at you. Typical family,
Yeah.
whatever. And you're just like, oh, cool.
Poor
Steve's like, hey.
Steve.
Steve's like, Peter, it's fine. And Peter finally says, I just want you to release me. Just say it. Like, just release what you want to say. Just fucking say it.
Hmm.
She jumps up. She jumps up, slams her hands on the table, and says, don't you, what does she say? She slams her hands down on the ground and she stands up. I mean, the look on her face, she is so, so angry. And she says, don't you swear at me, you little shit. Don't you
Yeah.
ever raise your voice at me. And then she goes on
I
about
am
how
your mother.
I am your mother. Yeah.
I'm your
Um,
mother.
the dialogue in this scene and the way that she delivers the lines and Peter's reaction, the tear slowly falling from his eye and her voice cracking. She goes from super angry, sad, angry again. I mean, she's real into her emotions at this point in time, and she speaks to him on such an angry level, but then gets to his level as a mother, and she's like, I don't want this for you. I don't want this pain. If I could take it away from you, I would, but you never even apologized. No one around here admits anything when they do something wrong, and whole mental breakdown. It's
Hmm.
warranted. I mean, she's very broken. So at the end of this, in true typical teen fashion, Peter's stunned at everything she just said to him, and he has a little ignorant little remark to her, and she's finally calmed down. And he looks at her and says, she didn't want to go to the party, so why was she there? And she
Right.
says, stop it. Like, ugh, I mean, if no one's gonna watch this movie, just watch the scene alone. It's enough for to sell you on performance.
Yes. It was, you felt all the emotions. And like
Yeah.
both sides, both Peter and her, like totally valid. And it's
Hmm.
weird that they didn't talk about it before then.
I
You'd
agree.
think like they would talk about it. Like, can you even imagine how Peter feels?
No, I could not
Yeah.
imagine. And I think that's what this film does so good. And I think the root of it all, the real horror, if you eliminate the supernatural stuff, the real horror of this film is just that dysfunctional family drama of dealing with grief, a loss of a loved one, and the emotions that you deal with going through those things. I
Hmm.
couldn't imagine, and the way things are portrayed and how honest it is, and their acting. Just there's so many levels that really are horrific, for sure.
Yeah.
Real quick fun fact: Ari Aster actually wrote this film just as a family drama, a family that was dealing with the
Really?
loss of a loved one. That's all the movie was.
I want to see that movie.
So that was his original script, and when he completed it, he thought there was so much more to the story to tell, and then it turned in after some rewrites that he did. It then turned into the film that it is today.
Mm, I want to see the other one.
You want the original family drama
I
version?
do. I do.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I will say that the family drama stuff is very good in this film.
Hmm.
Next day, we see Annie at an art supplies place. It's called Joel's, written in the same font as Joanne's. I don't know why that stuck out to me.
I was like,
Also, because
I
at
want
first,
to go to this place. I want to go to this
yeah,
art supply store.
Joel's. So Annie's leaving Joel's. She has art supplies, obviously, for all of her work. And lo and behold, look who's in the parking lot. No one other than Joan.
Not a good thing.
Nope, Joan's got some stuff in her car, and she's like, "It's been a while since I've seen you." And when come on over to the car. I want to talk to you. She's like, "I met a spiritual medium," and she talks about how they did an open séance.
Yeah.
So that's fun. Joan's kind of like, "Yeah, I know that you probably think that's crazy. They were bringing skeptics in and scientists." And Joan's like, "So I went in being, completely against it, not thinking anything was going to happen." And she goes on to be like, "It was such a great experience. Yes, the open seance. They brought a man from the 19th century in, um, and it completely changed her outlook on how she felt about things." She ended up asking about her son and her grandson, and the medium ended up going to Joan's apartment, and they performed the open seance together so that Joan could talk to her son and grandson. And she made contact, and they had a conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
Annie's like, "This is that's
No, no, no,
absolutely
no, no,
crazy.
no. Yeah, get
Sorry, I'm
away from
very
me.
yeah." Get away from me. That's so weird. And Joan's like, "No, I felt a presence in the room. It's so real." And she's trying to convince her, like, "You need to come over to my house so we can do the same exact thing so you can talk to Charlie." Would you go, Lauren?
No.
How did we all know that was going to be your answer?
No, I mean, if it was Ann Dowd, I'd say no.
What if I said, "Come on over, we're going to do an open seance"?
I trust you, so, but if you see Ann Dowd in this type of situation, the answer is no.
Well, I sent you an invitation for an open seance at our play. Oh, I'm just kidding. So,
Fine.
quick cut. Perfect. Quick cut. We are now at Joan's apartment. All the lights are off, and god damn it, Annie decided that she wants to do this open seance. So, we're here. The seance has already started. And Louie, are you here? It's Grandma. She's already trying to talk to her grandson. There's some weird stuff happening. Little
Yeah.
sounds, little movements, starting to really creep Annie out. Joan talks about moving the glass, that she wants the spirit of her grandson to move the glass. They both have to put their hands on the glass very very lightly, use it kind of like in the Ouija board in a way.
Yep.
She's like, "Move the glass if you're fine, whatever." And then of course the glass moves. Annie quickly pulls her hand away, completely shocked. She's skeptical. She's like, "How did you do that?" She even bends over and looks underneath the table to see if
Mhm.
there's a magnet of some sort or something, some kind of trickery going on. And guess what? There's not. So Joan's like, "If the answer is yes, I want you to move the glass this way. If the answer is no, I want you to move the glass that way." And of course, it starts moving around. Annie's like, "Holy shit, this is crazy." And then it moves really fast. Again, back to Toni Collette's acting. I mean, God, she was mortified of what she was seeing in this scene.
Yeah.
So then, instead of calming Annie down, Joan's like, "I got more for you, Annie."
Well,
And
let's get
she
out the
says,
chalkboard.
"Let's get out the chalkboard, and my little grandson is gonna write a little
He's
message
gonna
to
write.
us."
Yeah.
And then, Annie's staring at this, almost hyperventilating at this point, and the chalk just starts writing, and it says, "I love you, Grandma." Oh
So who
boy.
do you think this
I
is?
think it's payment, or I think it's opening up a I think it's breaking that spiritual. I think this is a way for Payman to get a little bit more power, like to kind of be welcomed into going somewhere else and attaching himself to Annie. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking this is probably Payman.
Yes, so I do think it's Payman. I do think it's, and again, if it's not Payman, it's one of his little henchmen, maybe Pyman, who is,
Also, do you think that Joan had a son and grandson who actually died? Or do you
no,
think you don't think so? You don't think she was trying to get them to be
nope.
Payman?
I think every little thing that happens in this movie is completely set up by fate, and I think in the Hereditary bloodline, it's supposed to be in the
Okay.
Graham family.
Okay.
Yeah,
So she did not have a son or grandson.
I don't think so. I think it's completely a made up story, and I, yeah, I don't know. I
Hmm.
do. I think it's all made up. I think it's really all just to trap this family and ruin their lives forever.
Yeah. Fun.
So yes, good times were had by all. If only she would have brought her dick to the party. Damn it. So Anne's completely freaked out. Annie's completely freaked out, jumps up, and Joan, turns the lights on. She's like, it's okay. No worries, no worries, we're fine. So this kind of introduced this world to Annie, and Joan offers Annie the candle. She gives her the little
Basically
scripture to read.
shoves the candle in her hand.
Yeah, she's like, "You're gonna do this. You want to talk to Charlie. It's a great
Yeah.
time." So mortified for the most part, and she's driving home, and as she's driving, got the cluck in the background. I don't even know if I can do it the right way, but it's fine. She hears the cluck in the background. It's loud enough to, even in the movie theater when I saw it, everyone in the audience was kind of like,
I would have
and
loved
Annie,
to see this in a movie theater with other people.
yeah, Annie then quickly jumps in the look in the back seat. Nothing's there, obviously, and she
Mhm.
kind of breaks down a little bit, completely overwhelmed emotionally from everything she just witnessed. And then we cut to the house at nighttime. I will say, however, the interesting thing about this shot of the house, it is not their house. It is the miniature that
Wait, it's the
Tony
what?
Collette. It's the miniature house that
It's
Tony
the
Collette's character
miniature?
made. It's definitely the miniature. The way that it looks. Look, I'm literally gonna take a picture because the first time I saw it, I'm like, why does it look so weird? I don't even know if the picture's gonna do it justice. If anyone's watching this movie and you come to this
You
point,
sending it to me right now?
yeah. Um, if anyone's at this point in the movie watching it, it just looks like the miniature to me. Like there's something off about it. I think it's done intentionally. I don't think it's like a mistake by any means. But I just think it's. I think it lets off the illusion that everything that
Let
we're
me see
seeing is
this
just kind
picture.
of altered. I don't even know if the picture does it justice.
Why can't I believe I'm so bad with technology.
Oh boy, guys.
Yeah, the trees look kind of fake.
Yeah, the trees look fake, and then like the just like the roofing and stuff. I don't know. It
Yeah.
just the way that it's. And I don't know. I think it's very very much done so intentionally. I think it's we're in this weird world, and I don't know, creepy. Yeah. So now we cut back inside the house. Annie cannot sleep. She's kind of tossing and turning a little bit, and Steve's obviously fast asleep. And when Annie turns over, she notices a bunch of ants in her bed. Dun dun
Mm-hmm.
dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
She kind of follows the trail of ants while sitting up in bed, and she sees it leads to a window, and it looks like all the ants are coming in through their bedroom window, crawling down across the room and into the hallway. She's following the ants, seeing where it takes her. The music swells up and gives you a very disjointed feeling, and she walks into Peter's room, and we see Peter lying in bed, ants all over him, consuming his face, much like Charlie's face was on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
She screams, but it's a silent scream. It's like this really cool imagery of her like screaming, but nothing's coming out.
Uh-huh.
And you hear Peter's voice. He says, "Mom, what are you doing?" And we cut to a big wide shot, and she's just standing in the room. She kind of looks all disjointed, like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is super weird. So she's just standing there, and she's like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "You're sleepwalking." She just keeps staring and completely confused. And then she says, "I'm sorry, is Charlie here?" Peter just kind of looks at her like, "What the hell?" He doesn't say
Uh-huh.
it, but it's basically like, "Mom, Charlie's dead." But Peter's response is, "Why are you scared of me?" So he answered her question with a question.
Uh-huh.
She just kind of stares at him, and she was like, "What?" And so we have another question now. Kind of like in dreams sometimes when you have like this weird, nothing kind of makes sense. So you kind of like, you're remembering everything that's happening, but nothing really adds up. And then she just randomly says, "I never wanted to be your mother."
Yeah. I
Deep.
gasped at that part.
Yes, and
What a weird thing to say.
right, and Annie does the same thing. As soon as it comes out of her mouth, again, Toni Collette's acting, she just kind of,
She's like,
and it's almost like you believe that she didn't mean to say that. Like even like when they were filming this movie, that she didn't even mean to say it. It just kind of came out. She's completely shocked it came out of her mouth, and she says, "I didn't feel like a mother." She sniffles. She's saying that she just felt pressured. She's like, "It's not my fault. I tried to stop it. We don't really know what she's talking about. He doesn't know what she's talking about. Lots of confusion here." She's like, "I tried to have a miscarriage." And he was like, "You didn't want to have me." And he was like, "Well, how did you try to have a miscarriage?" She said, "I tried everything I could, everything they told me not to do, and it just didn't work." And as the conversation is going back and forth, it keeps cutting back and forth to each other. And all of a sudden, you notice that Peter is drenched in something. And at first, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, he's sweating. Like he's
uh-huh.
and then it cuts back to Annie. She's saying, "I love you. I love you." It cuts back to her. She's drenched now as well. And I think at this moment in time, it kind of becomes knowledge that this was what she was talking about from her past, whether it be a dream or sleepwalking, that she poured paint thinner all over herself and the kids and was going to light a match. So that is what's happening. And all of a sudden, we hear, a match light, and we start to see fire all around her. It consumes the screen, and then Annie wakes up in her bed. Intense. How did you feel about that scene?
I don't know. It was like equal parts emotional and equal parts like what the fuck's happening here?
Uh,
Like I said, when she says I never wanted to be your mother, that part of this whole scene was the thing that stuck out to me. Cut very deep.
so we're back in their bedroom now. Annie has gotten out of bed from her horrible nightmare. She's in the bathroom. The light is on. The bathroom door is closed in their bedroom. We hear her reciting something. She's talking in the bathroom. We can only assume that she is trying out this seance herself.
Yeah.
So as the
Don't
camera
do
pans,
it, Annie.
yeah, don't do it, Annie. As the camera pans to the room, Zach actually pointed this out. There's two circular windows above their bed, or mirrors. I guess they're mirrors. Two mirrors above their bed, and on the right side mirror, there's a face. In yeah.
Nuh-uh.
But it's not like a human face. It almost looks like I literally have a pause on it. It looks
Are you gonna send that
like
to
a
me?
it looks like a childish, like a clown.
A
Um,
clown? That's even
Not even a clown. I mean,
worse.
like I don't even know, like a toy. I don't know. It's definitely creepy, and I never noticed it before. So when Zach pointed out, I was like, oh, that's a really, really good eye on that. So I don't really know if it means anything. It obviously was put there for
Oh
a
my
reason.
God.
You can see it. Creepy,
That's
right?
so creepy. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Enjoy your
Holy
nightmares.
shit. It's so weird. Okay, deleting that picture you just sent me right
I'll,
now.
I'll, I'll keep sending it.
No, 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 no. It's being deleted right now. There we
So
go.
rude.
Mini trash can. Goodbye.
Even worse. So
Yeah.
we jump back to Annie is now out of the bathroom. She is in Peter's room and she wakes him up and tells him that they need to meet downstairs. She has something really exciting to show them. And she also does the same thing with Steve and she gets her family downstairs and she tells them all about this new exciting thing that they can do. She learned how to do an open seance and wants them to help her with it. She needs their help. Steve's absolutely 100% not for it. He thinks this is absolutely ridiculous. Peter's kind of like, nah, sounds fun. I'll do it. So she grabs their hand. She has the glass on the table, just like with Joan. And Annie says, I'm a medium. I'm a medium. She does this one time and she automatically has
I
this
have
great way
special
of,
powers. Yeah.
yeah, I can do things no one else can. But she wants to do this as a family. She wants to talk to Charlie. And basically, they start the seance. She starts speaking with Charlie. She does the same exact thing that she and Joan did with the cup. And at that point in time, good old Peter hears a sound in the background, definitely freaks him out. They put their hands on the glass and she asks if they feel that. So now Charlie is communicating with them. Peter is starting to get very scared, starting to breathe
Hmm.
heavy again. He's asking his mom to stop. She says no, puts the notebook down that Charlie used to sketch her things with, and she was like, Charlie did these earlier, so she's going to keep doing them again. Completely against it. The flame blows up, things get a little creepy, and all of a sudden Annie stops, puts her head down, and Annie starts growling.
Yeah. Creepy.
And now Annie is speaking as Charlie. She's, saying hello, but she's speaking to Charlie and asking, why does everyone seem so scared? Where are you at, mommy? What's going on? And then she starts screaming for her mom. She starts screaming mom, and her voice, as she's screaming, it starts to become very distorted. And Peter is like, you need to stop this, mom, stop. He's screaming at her. And as her voice gets louder and more disoriented, they turn the lights back on and throw water in her face and completely pull her right back out of it.
Hmm.
She's like, what happened? So pretty creepy stuff. That was Charlie's way of getting out there. Now, Peter is completely mortified. He still cannot sleep, and there's a really cool shot of him sitting in his bed after all of this has happened, completely awake, and it immediately cuts to the morning time, and he's now in his classroom. So the position he was sitting on the bed, in a real quick instant, he is now in a classroom in the same exact position.
Yeah.
He's in
Was
class, not
there,
paying
at
attention.
this point, was there someone in the corner?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean,
Uh,
what am I talking about?
what? I don't know what you mean, Lauren. um, So while Peter's in class, he starts to see a shimmering light, much like the light that Charlie saw that led her outside earlier in the film. So he sees this light and kind of follows it around the room. He looks around, tries to make sure that someone else saw it too. No one else is reacting to it. And we as an audience just kind of like, what the hell's happening? And the light leads to a reflection next to him on his left-hand side. As he follows the light over, he looks into this reflection and he sees himself However, the reflection
Oh
is
God.
smiling back at him,
Oh
and
God.
Peter is not smiling.
No. Yeah. The look on his face, I was like, "Ugh, why?"
Super creepy. He sees it, and obviously it freaks him out a little bit. He stands up and he's like, I need to go use the restroom. Teacher's like, by all means, go for it. Pretty creepy stuff.
Yeah.
Annie's back at home and she is working on more of her art, and finally she just loses it. She essentially smashes all of her stuff, throws it all on the ground, and Steve comes home to this, sees it, and just knows that there's definitely something very wrong now. This is beyond just losing a child. There's a lot more trauma that's happening, and
She needs help.
Steve, yeah, so Steve pops a pill and hopes for the best. So Annie, it's now nighttime. Annie hears some weird sounds. She's kind of taken back from it. Like, what is that noise? It almost sounds like scribbling. So she's walking through the hallway. It leads her into Charlie's bedroom, where Charlie's sketchbook is on the end of her bed, and we notice that there is drawings now being etched into the book, and very slowly the pages turn to draw a new sketch. So as Annie gets closer, she keeps seeing these drawings happen, and they're pictures of Peter in various
Mm-hmm.
forms. Pages keep turning. Annie's obviously like, "What the fuck?" Back in Peter's bedroom now. Obviously, it's nighttime, so Peter is home from school. He's lying in bed, wide awake, and he looks over in the corner of his room and sees good old Charlie standing there.
Uh-huh.
Charlie, as we remember her, she has her orange hoodie on,
Yep.
just kind of standing there, staring off into the distance. This obviously really creeps a good old Peter out, and Charlie turns her head to him, and as she turns her head, she starts to turn her head down, and her head just rolls off.
Falls off, yeah.
So she's standing in the corner in complete darkness, and when her head goes down and rolls over, it's her head until it hits the light coming in from the moon outside. And when it hits the light, we see that it's just a ball.
Mm-hmm.
And over in the corner was just a jacket hanging up. Super creepy. Nightmare fuel.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've all been there. We're in the middle of the night and we're like, what is that? What is that? And then we
Right.
go and it's like, yeah, a shoe.
Just a shoe. And then the dog's there. The dog's at the door, and the dog is whimpering, mortified, barking, doesn't want to go into the room because, dogs have very good sense that creepy shit's happening. He
Yeah.
starts growling and he's like, I'm going to get the hell out of here. And just as the dog starts to turn, Peter is thrown back onto the bed by two hands coming up from behind his headboard, holding him down and trying to pull him back, which is weird because the headboard is up against the wall and the door slams shut all by itself.
Uh-huh.
Peter's screaming and gasping for air. Steve is downstairs sleeping. We assume that the pill he took was a sleeping
Knocked him
pill.
straight out. Yeah.
Knocked him straight out. He is sleeping well. Got back up to the room, and Peter is completely shocked because Annie is in the room. He is screaming at her, saying, "What are you doing to me? You're trying to kill me again. You're trying to pull my head off." Lots of decapitations and pulling of heads.
It's Payman's
Uh,
game, man.
yeah, Payman's game. Uh, that would have been a great title. This is where Annie's trying to tell him, it's not true. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I opened up something by doing the seance. I opened up something. I need to close it. I am so sorry. We can fix this. Let me fix it. And while this scene's happening, we cut back to the bedroom where her sketchbook is, and there's still more pictures being drawn. And we just see Peter's face, and there's X's throughout his eyes on every single page, and there's tears coming from it. So we do know that Peter's fate is not in good hands.
So who do you think was strangling Peter?
I think it was Payman too. I don't really think that there was actually real hands there grabbing onto him. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was more of a force that you couldn't see. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel like this is Payman. I feel like the seance had to happen in order for Payman to latch onto these people again, to make them a little bit more vulnerable to get to them. So he's very slowly breaking them down. Fuel is or nightmares, and fear is his fuel to get him going. So Annie goes downstairs with the sketchbook, starts a fire, and she's like, I'm getting rid of this shit. And she throws that sketchbook right in the fire. And just as the book hits the flame, a flame then shows up on her arm. So as the book starts to catch fire, her arm is also catching on fire.
Mm-hmm.
So she freaks out really fast, realizing that there might be some sort of connection here. She pulls the sketchbook back out, puts the fire out, and the fire is also out on her. Nice.
Magically. Yeah.
Magically. Back to the next day, Annie is pissed. She wants to know all the answers to everything. She goes over to Joan's house, bangs on the door. No one's answering. However, we as an audience, the camera is panning through go to his apartment. We start to see there's lots of candles lit. We also see the payment symbols everywhere, lots of white sheets, and we also see pictures of Peter everywhere as well. And
Yeah.
finally, the camera pans down to a triangle etched into the dining room table, I guess, with a picture, like a school picture of Peter in the center, as well as the little cute things that Charlie
Little
made.
toys that Charlie made, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually just realized that it's not a pill bottle that the bird's decapitated head is on. It's actually her inhaler. So that's cool.
Oh,
But there is a pill bottle too. So
huh.
yeah, good times. So we
Interesting.
as an audience are like, oh shit, something weird's going on. This is when Annie looks down again. She saw outside the door and notices the doormat again. And as she takes a longer look at it, she makes a connection that we are not 100% sure about.
Hmm.
Back at school, Peter is having lunch all by himself. Poor Peter.
Poor Peter.
He's having lunch by himself, drinking some milk and what looks like eating some chicken fingers. And across the street, he notices a woman. She's yelling his name, Peter, and we as an audience know who it is. It's Joan, and Joan's
Joni
saying a
Joan.
bunch of weird words, different language. She's yelling at Peter. She says, "Get out!" She's like, "Peter, I expel you. Get out!" Peter's like all creeped out, looking around. Is he the only one hearing this? Is anyone else seeing it? Because no one else is reacting to it. So
So she's
Joni,
trying to expel Peter from his own body to put Payment in there.
yep.
What happens to Peter then?
I think the soul of Peter would die.
Oh,
So
really?
Peter as yeah, so the soul, so kind of like how Charlie was no longer Charlie pretty much from birth. Like who
Hmm.
Charlie was as an essence was gone, and I think who Peter would be should this happen, Peter would be gone, and Payman would now inhabit that body.
And it
So
has to be specifically him because he's part of this family.
yes, yep.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
the only way to get
It's
to him
all
is
starting to make sense.
to keep breaking this family down, to get rid of the people in the way, and to make him as emotionally traumatized as possible, so
Uh-huh.
he can take over.
It's
So Annie made a
working.
connection. Annie made a connection of some sort. She goes back to her mother's stuff. She pulls out some books, and here she finds the book that I talked about earlier, the Book of Solomon. It's not named that in the film, but we assume that's what it is. It has some passages from the actual book itself, where it kind of, if you like pause the text, you can kind of read. It kind of talks about needing a female host. Payment is a male, however, has female figure to the face, needs a human body, a male body to take over, decapitations, all that stuff. So, Annie's
I
kind of looking through this.
I feel like it's such a thing for what the entire movie's about.
No, you're not wrong. I feel like there could have been some more ways to kind of break this down, or even if they did like a cheesy like little flashback or a way to kind of tell the story in a couple of minutes, in like a
Yeah.
cool theatrical way.
I'm going to reference Harry Potter here for a
Okay, what's
second.
that? Who is it? I'm just kidding. Yes. What's up with
So
Harry Potter?
in one of the movies, they're talking about the Deathly Hallows,
Mhm.
and you know, Harry's not familiar, and they tell the story, and they tell the story in a very artistic way
Yeah.
with those like cartoon
Oh yeah.
characters.
No,
Remember that? Yeah.
I do actually.
They should have
Yeah,
done that.
yeah. I feel like they could have came up with a clever way like that
Yeah.
to kind of break it down. But if anything, if this podcast does anything, it'll be you get to listen to my little prequel on Payman and what happened
Yes.
before.
All I needed was that prequel.
You're welcome. Are
Why
you gonna
didn't
watch it again?
you? No. Wait, why didn't you send me that prequel? Because you wanted me to have an honest opinion without knowing what actually happened. Because I didn't
Yes.
know what was happening.
Yeah, because I think you had to see the film as everyone got to witness it. You know what I mean?
I guess.
I'm a jerk. I know. I'm so sorry. So Annie's going through this stuff, and she finds that book, and we're just kind of like, what the fuck, Payment and sacrifices, and then she finds a scrapbook, and in the scrapbook is pictures of her mother, and it's actually things with her in this cult. And guess who's there in these pictures with her?
Joan.
Good old Joan.
Joni
Yeah.
Joan.
So that's cool. So now Annie's kind of putting all this stuff together, maybe not fully understanding like the audience, but still, I mean, the pieces are definitely being put together. There's something very satanic happening here. She can't believe her eyes. She then comes across a picture in the scrapbook of her and her family. It looks like maybe like a little family vacation. And below it is that same exact picture that she's looking at, but it's in a photo frame being taken from another camera. And it looks like it's being maybe a part of the ritual.
Uh-huh.
So the picture that she sees now is what looks like the cult leaders having some sort of seance type thing, some sort of witchcraft happening, and the picture of that picture of the family is there on the wall.
Mhm.
So I think there's some sort of summoning with the family here. I feel like this might have been the start of Payman being attracted to this family and knowing that it needs to take over the rest of them since, Charlie was eventually going to meet her demise. Do you think, now that you know all this stuff, do you feel like it was fate that Charlie died, knowing that the light pole had Payman's symbol on it and all that
What do you
stuff?
think? Like, Payman was getting impatient and wanted to get to his male host or whatever?
Yeah, and I feel like Charlie, the best way to break Charlie at her most vulnerable state was to have her literally nearing death. And yeah, that's the mind of this movie. Sorry, watch me while I nerd out. So
Uh-huh.
Andy's all freaked out now. We're cut back to Peter, and Peter sees this light, the shimmering light again. It goes down the school hallway and leads to the classroom. As he's standing there, after he followed the light, he stands still looking at that classroom, and the teacher behind the door slowly turns his head and looks at Peter and stares at him. So what I get from that is I feel like Payman is behind that door, and that's Payman's way of getting Peter to kind of head that way because he wants to start making some sort of sacrifice, whatever that might be. In true fashion, we're cutting around all over the place. We're back to the house, and Annie wants a little bit more answers, so she decides to go up to the attic. When she gets up there, obviously it's dark up there and it smells really bad.
Oh God, this part, yeah.
She's covering her nose, and she's like, I can't bear it. There's flies everywhere. And then over in the corner with a candle that's lit is a body, a decomposing body.
Yep.
And who's that body?
Her mother.
It is her mother's
I
body that
am your
has
mother.
yeah, she is her mother that is now headless. So her
Yeah.
grandmother, or her mother, obviously died in hospice care, so she was not decapitated. But now this body is decapitated, missing a head. She looks over in the corner of the room, and in blood is Payman's symbol drawn onto the wall. All sorts of freaked out. This movie has kicked it into high gear. We're back in school. Peter's in that classroom that the light led him to, and he starts hearing the clucking sound from good old Charlie, and he's looking around, complete fear on this kid's face. He is so insanely scared. The teacher starts to notice that Peter's acting very weird, and Peter reaches his hand up in the air,
Yeah.
and his hand, so this, you won't see it till towards the end of the film, but I'm going to tell you now. Drawn symbol of Payman
Mhm.
is he has like a stick in his hand, like a walking stick,
Yeah.
and at the end of it, it's curved like his hand, like
I did
Peter's
notice
hand
that.
is in this scene.
Yeah.
Perfect. So he's almost making a reference to Payman himself. So now Payman has found his way into Peter, has taken over the use of his body, and has made and his eyes red and like almost not bulging out, but it's much bigger. The other one's like more closed. His mouth is all disjoined, and I don't know. He then makes the clucking sound and then slams his head into the desk really
Ugh.
hard.
Ugh, that just gave me
Uh,
the chills.
yeah, he does it again and again. Obviously, blood's coming from his mouth. He falls backwards, screaming. Kind of at this point, I think he's kind of checked out of it really fast. Peter himself has taken over the body again. He's screaming, blood
I
pouring out
think
of his
he's like
nose.
fighting Payman almost, like fighting.
Yes,
Yeah.
so he's not vulnerable enough for Payman to take full control yet. So Peter's all freaked out. Everyone in the classroom is stunned. There's blood. In filming this scene, gotta tell you this, in filming this scene, Alex Wolff, the actor, asked Ari Aster if he could actually break his nose in this scene.
God, no, he didn't.
So on set of the film, Alex Wolff went completely method and only wanted to be called and referred to Peter the entire filming process. He never
Oh
wanted to be referred
my
to as
God.
Alex. So throughout filming, he wanted to be Peter. So when obviously Peter breaks his nose in this moment, we'll see it in a second. But yeah, Alex Wolff asked the director if he could break his nose, and Ari Aster was like, "No, we're not going to do that." So what they did was they made a foam desk. So the top of the
Mm-hmm.
desk was made of foam. However, the bottom of it's obviously hard, so you got the foam. So they're like, we made a foam desk, whatever. So being really into the scene, Alex Wolff decided to slam his head down as hard as he could into the desk. However, he hit the foam so hard, he hit the hard back of the desk and dislocated his jaw. Yeah.
Oh my
So
God. You know what I've always wondered? These actors that go method, the other actors that they're acting with, are they just supposed to just go along with it? Like, Like if it's
I think
not
so.
their choice, like if someone can just get into that scene without having to do that the entire time, like, and they're like, oh, man, this guy's stupid. I always wondered that. Are we supposed to
I
play
mean,
along or
yeah, I think they are supposed to play along. I also read that after this method acting throughout the film, at the end of filming, he reintroduced himself to the entire cast and crew as
I just feel like that is so, what's the word I'm looking for? Conceited.
yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I honestly, I would love to see it though, like on set. I mean, I'd love to see how these actors get lost into things like that for sure.
Yeah, but you'd go freaking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think one of the biggest method actor things
Oh,
that
yeah.
ended tragically was Heath Ledger as
Heath
the
Ledger,
Joker.
yeah.
They recently leaked a lot of his journal entries while he was studying the Joker, and it's crazy.
No, it's disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, just the things that he wrote is disturbing, and I remember seeing some comments below like they can't believe that Heath Ledger thought those things, and I think what people need to understand was that he was writing as the Joker, not as Heath Ledger. Like
Hmm.
that's part of the method, and I don't know, I feel like you definitely could become pretty unhinged if you really get lost into it.
If I
Definitely creepy.
ever become an actress, I just need to be light and fluffy roles. Yeah.
Oh,
No Tony
cute.
Collette for me.
No, Tony Clancy. I would love to play that character. Yeah. All right, so we're at the end of basically at the end of the film. We're at the last 25 minutes. Things have really kicked it up again. We find out that Steve gets called to school to go pick up his son who has had an accident happen. He doesn't really know what he's walking into, but as he's driving to the school, we finally see Steve have a moment at a red light where he just uncontrollably sobs.
Mm.
His family has completely been torn apart. He lost his child. There's no turning back from any of this stuff. So he picks up Peter. He goes back to the house. Annie's in the driveway waiting for him, so excited to tell him about all these things that have been happening, that she's figured it out how to put an end to this. Peter's then in the back seat. She notices and she's like, "What happened to him?"
Is this the same car?
It is, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
What
same
wouldn't she
car,
get rid
Prius.
of it at that point? Get a new one, new memories.
You would think,
I
but
wouldn't
no.
want to sit in the back of that car.
Yeah. Peter was definitely right in there.
Yeah, that's sad.
Back in the house, Annie is just following Steve around. She's telling him everything that we as an audience and she herself as a character discovered. She talks about the stuff she found in the box, the embroidery, all the stuff goes back to her mother, possible cult type connections. She talks about Joan. All while this is happening, she talks about what's upstairs. So Steve decides to go upstairs and check it out for himself. And I think I can speak for you too. I think you thought maybe when he went up there, the body wouldn't be there, right?
Yep, I definitely thought
Yeah.
that. I thought she's gone crazy. She's hallucinating, things like that. Also, I love when he was like, "Who's Joan?" Because she was just
Who's
going to the movies.
Yeah, yeah. Where the hell did you meet Joan at?
Who's Joan?
Um, that bitch. Uh, so Steve goes upstairs, and although we hear his reaction, there's definitely a body up there. It's her mother. Uh, Annie's like, right above this, there is a symbol above the bed or above the body in blood. It's a symbol of payment, and he had heard about a grave being dug up, and he was like, "You're the one that dug up the grave, pretending like you're going to the movies, and this is what you've been doing."
Yeah.
She talks about her idea about a curse. She talks about the sketchbook, pictures of Peter. So it kind of all comes full circle now. He thinks she's batshit crazy, and she's like, I know how to end this, and the only way to end this is to
Destroy.
sacrifice myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she knows that when she lights the sketchbook on fire, she also is going to catch on fire. So she says her final farewell to him. She's holding the sketchbook and she's like, "This is the end. I love you so much. I love this family, but I have to do what I have to do. This is going to save you guys." So we're like, wow, this bitch is she's crazy, but she's really
This
helping
was the
out. She
other
starts the fire.
scene that I was like, wow, her acting.
Yeah, incredible, incredible.
Mhm.
The fire's lit, but she's like, "Steve, you have to do this, catch me on fire, essentially." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And finally, she's like, "I've had enough. I can't do this anymore." And she grabs the sketchbook from his hand and she tosses it into the fire, fully ready to catch on fire. And what happens, Lauren?
Steve catches on
Steve
fire.
catches on fire, and not slowly like when the sketchbook caught on fire the first
Uh-huh.
time. He just goes up in flames. His whole entire body just engulfed in flames.
When, like, why doesn't she try and get this sketchbook out now? She's probably in shock.
Yeah, completely in shock. And oddly enough, this is Payman's way to take over Annie. So now the best way to get to Peter is to get rid of Charlie so Payman can get out of that body. So now Payman, like you said, is floating around. He's breaking everyone down as much as he can and realizes that he needs to get rid of Steve because Steve is
Mhm.
the person that's kind of pulling them to reality and
Well,
all
and
this
he's like
mess.
the person of reason at this
Yep.
point.
And he's not necessarily part of the bloodline either.
Yeah.
So this was the Payman's way of getting rid of Steve, and in Steve's death happening right in front of Annie, Annie quickly
Mhm.
stops. She kind of goes completely blank face, and at this moment we're like, fuck,
Yeah.
Payman is here, and he has now taken over Annie. So Annie was at her most vulnerable moment, knowing that she just caused her husband to go up in flames and essentially die. So now Payman has taken over Annie's body. We cut to the exterior shot, and then we
Oh
cut
god, this
to
next part is like bleh.
Yep. So exterior shot of the house because it was still daytime. There's a real quick snap, and we're looking at the same exact scene, but now it's pitch black outside. However, in this scene, in this moment, if you look closely, there's little naked bodies all around the house. Did you notice
God.
that the first time? So yeah, bunch of naked bodies, real quick scene, 2 seconds. People are surrounding the house, and we're kind of like, okay, what the fuck is this? Cut to Peter. This is the ultimate end of the movie. Peter is lying in bed. Um, some bandages on his nose. He obviously broke his nose, like as we mentioned. He wakes up to hearing a sound. He's not quite sure what it is. He's just sitting there. Lauren, what did you think of this scene? Paint the picture.
No, I don't want to. She's like sawing off her own head.
No, not yet. Not yet.
No, I
No. So
ruined
we
it.
haven't. No, we haven't. No, you're just fine. So we ultimately Andy does some crazy shit.
Yeah.
But in the scene, Peter wakes up. He's sitting up in
Oh, she's
bed.
in the corner,
Yep. So she's in the corner of the room, but not on the ground. She's up in the corner
like
of the
on yeah,
ceiling.
ceiling, yeah.
The scene's filmed very dark. When I was in the theater, it was basically if you weren't really staring at the scene because she's wearing white. That's really the only indication that you can see her. I do remember people in the theater gasping, like
Mhm.
I heard people like lean over and be like, "Do you see her? Do you see her?" She's up in the corner. But Peter doesn't notice it at all. But Peter does notice a bunch of lights turn on inside of the treehouse outside of his window, but they weren't the
Mhm.
same red lights as before. These almost look like candle flickerings. He's still sitting in bed, kind of figuring it all out. Annie's still up in the corner being all creepy, floating in the air. Peter then eventually turns around and she's gone.
Yep.
And as he's looking around the room trying to figure out why he has such an uneasy feeling, uh, Annie's body kind of floats out of the room, almost like a slow flying out of the
Mhm.
room. And we're all kind of like, what the fuck? So this is a little bit of, not a long scene, but it's kind of cool because it's kind of a tracking shot. We're following Peter throughout the house. He's asking mom, dad, like, where are you guys? He's walking in room to room, kind of looking everywhere. And we as an audience are like, shit, Annie is
Please
lurking
don't let
around
him
somewhere.
see his dad.
Yes. So
Please
his
do not
dad's
let that
dead.
happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
and he
his
does.
dad's dead in the living room, and so he finally makes his way downstairs. We also know that Annie's somewhere creeping around. He makes his way downstairs and notices, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the corner of the room at the bottom of the steps, the piano is overturned and kind of
I did
torn up
notice
a
it.
little bit, foreshadowing. And
Yeah.
he's still walking around a little bit and then finally stumbles upon a wrecked living room and his charred up father on the floor.
Yeah.
Dead, dead, dead. As he notices the body and gets closer to it, he's obviously starts reacting, gasping, crying. And then again, up in the corner of the room
She's
is
there again.
good old Annie just floating above him, up in the ceiling. She hears some weird noises and then looks over in the corner to see a naked man, which is the same man that was at the funeral home at the beginning of the movie
With
that
the
smiled
creepy
very,
smile.
the creepy ass smile, staring at him just as he stared at Charlie at the funeral home. Peter's kind of staring at him like, what the fuck are you doing here? Hears a
Mhm.
loud thud sound. He's distracted to the thud. And then the opposite corner of the room now is Annie, who runs from the corner of the room at him and chases him throughout the house. She, as she's chasing him, Peter runs up the steps, up to the attic, pulls the stairs down, and just in time pulls himself up the steps to close the attic door.
No, don't go in there, Peter.
So
This
now
poor
Peter's in the
child.
attic, and we hear pounding, 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 pounding. So at first we're like, okay, Annie's trying to get in there. She's real crazy. Obviously, Payman is taking over her body. Payman is trying to break down this attic door. However, we then start to realize, well, the attic door is in the ceiling. So how the hell is she pounding on the door? Does she grab a ladder? Nope.
No.
She is just on all fours on top of the door, upside down, banging her head really fast and really hard into that door, trying to break it open. Creepy, creepy shit.
Mhm. Ugh.
So now we're in the attic. Peter realizes that there's some light happening in the attic, and he notices the flies everywhere. He notices there's a bunch of candles everywhere that are all lit. There are two people in the corner of the room that are barely visible, two naked women. One woman is more noticeable than the other. The other, you just kind of see a face. But now there's also naked women up in the attic staring at him, and we're kind of like, what the hell? He notices his grandmother's dead body. He notices the payment symbol. This isn't the bat signal, you
The
guys.
bat symbol. Yeah. Signal.
Batman, where are we? We could use Batman at this moment in
Yeah.
time. So he sees the symbol and he's telling himself, snap out of it. This is clearly just a dream. There's no way this is happening. And as he's trying to slap himself awake, he hears like a like a sloshing sound.
Yeah.
He slowly directs his attention to the sloshing, whatever. And here is his mother, who is now in the attic with him, at the top of the ceiling of the attic, with a piano string on her neck, just slowly sawing away.
Sawing her head off. Yep.
And what's even creepier, we get a close-up shot, and it's almost as if it is Annie at this moment in time, but not in control of her body. It's almost like her eyes have made contacts with his.
Yeah.
She's shocked and sad and completely traumatized, but it is Payman who has full control of her body, and she starts going harder and harder, sawing her head with this piano string, and blood's just gushing everywhere. He looks in the corner of the room. Now there's three people completely naked, visible to him, staring at him. He screams and jumps out the window. Obviously, jumping from the attic, he falls all the way to the ground, probably knocking him out. We linger on him for a second, and as he's lying there, slowly trying to come to, we notice that light that we've been seeing throughout the film slowly circle around his body, getting smaller and smaller, and entering into the center of his back. So
Payman
now
is there.
Payman has now taken over Peter's body. He is in the body, human form that he has been wanting. There's a shadow that kind of flies over Peter, and Peter directs his attention to it, and it's his headless mother, because obviously she sawed her head straight off. It's his
Yeah.
headless mother floating through the air and up into the treehouse outside. Peter directs his attention to this and slowly starts heading towards the treehouse, making the infamous clucking sound.
So maybe it is Payman.
I think it is Payman. I think he gave Charlie that nervous tick. I think that was a communication that Payman has, and yes. So Peter, or now Payman, is walking towards this treehouse. He climbs up the steps, enters into the treehouse, completely lit by candles. The music in this scene, like Kings, like I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. Amazing score. The score throughout this film is just fantastic. And in this treehouse is Joan,
Yeah.
a bunch of other cult leaders who are completely naked, the headless corpses of Annie, the mother, and Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also, an actual statue of Payman, but the head's replaced with Charlie's slowly decaying head. Has a crown, wearing a crown, and the stick that Payman is holding is just like Peter's arm was in the classroom. We see the decapitated bodies left over. We're all just kind of like, what the fuck is happening? And then Jones starts speaking. We see the picture of Queen Lee, which was his grandmother, the obvious cult leader. And now the ritual has finally happened. Payman has finally found his male vessel. He is able to walk among Earth in this form. And they finally accomplish what they let out to do. They take the crown off of the Payman statue and put it right on Peter's head. He's still trying to take it all in. Obviously, this is Payman at this point.
Yeah.
Payman's like, damn, this is what it's like to be in a male body. Cool. So Joan says, "You are Payman, one of the 8 kings of hell." Peter's body's just kind of staring at her like, the fuck? She says, "We have looked to the northwest and called you in. So we corrected your female body and given you a full healthy male host." She wants to know all the secrets, wants to know all of his knowledge. This is the cult group this is what they want to know. They say, "Bring us your honor, your wealth, and your good familiars." He's kind of staring at them like, what in the world? "Bind all men to our will." And they all chant at the same time, "Hail Payman, hail Payman." Do a big outside establishing shot of what's inside of this treehouse. All the cult leaders completely naked, worshiping him. Hail Payman.
Yeah, let's Pale Heyman.
That's pale, pale Heyman. Well, I think Payman is no longer paleable, or I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. So that is the end of the movie. All hail Payman. And
My
we
thought
cut
is
to
like,
Hereditary.
why? What do the police think when they show up?
Girl, I don't even know what's gonna happen. I mean, they definitely need to have some kind of sequel to tell us what the aftermath is.
I'm like, what are the police saying when they show up here?
Yeah, what a mess. What a mess of a movie. What a traumatic little journey of
Yeah,
real emotional horror. Well, Lauren,
yeah.
what's your reaction shot?
I disliked this movie.
No.
Yeah, I hated it.
You hated it.
I
Oh,
didn't say
I'm
hate. I did say
crushed.
hate. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm crushed. If I could cry like Tony Collette and good old Alex Wolff right now, I would.
I know.
Um,
I'm sorry.
it's fine. Everything's fine. So on a scale, it's fine. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best film you ever saw, and 1 being the worst film you ever saw, what are you giving Hereditary?
2.
I'm sorry, I thought you heard you say 2. Is that what you said?
I did say 2, yes.
No. Okay. 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 No, that's totally fine. I mean, I think this film, like I said, when the film first came out, audiences were very divided on it. A lot of people thought it to be boring. What didn't you like about the movie? Like, what makes you give it a 2?
Where to start? Where to start? Just
Almost spit my drink out.
No, I just the whole payment stuff, like, I was like, are we for real right now? I don't know. It just seemed kind of cheesy, and I while the acting was pretty, like, obviously Toni Collette was awesome. It just I don't know. That whole thing at the end, I'm just like, are you freaking serious right now? This is the end of this movie. This is so stupid.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please watch Hereditary. It is a great film.
Yeah,
No.
and honestly, like, I went into it expecting to be traumatized, and because everyone around me was, even like, when you, Dave Herman, say it's stuck with you, that's saying something. So I was fully expecting my life to be changed, and
It was changed. You saw that is now your worst rated film.
yeah,
We've done what, 6 episodes together, right? Yeah, 6 episodes, and this is your worst rated.
it is my worst rated. Yeah. No, I just, like I said, I expected it, and maybe it's traumatizing in parts. Yeah, sure, but I feel like we're just, I don't know. And the part that Courtney was referring to, that I referenced in the beginning, was when she stuck her head out the car window and her head came off.
Yeah, did that have any effect on you?
See, here's the thing. I watched Game of Thrones for
Mm.
8 years, and there are some pretty traumatizing scenes in there. So had I seen this movie without seeing that show, I probably would have affected me more. Not to say that it didn't affect me. Like, man, I sound like, oh,
Now I'm worried
who's
about
this girl?
you. Oh my
I know.
god.
But that show really, I was a very sensitive viewer, let's just say, before that show. And yeah, it hardened me.
Don't worry, Lauren. I will find that movie that traumatizes you. I'm gonna work real
Oh
hard to find it.
God, I don't wanna.
No. So
I already
yeah.
know which one it would be. Oh, you've already told me. If you can't figure it out, you've already told me that you want me to watch this movie.
We'll definitely do that movie. I'm not gonna tell anybody what it is. We're gonna
No.
surprise everyone.
Okay.
See what their reaction shot is to your reaction shot to that
Mm-hmm.
film. Well, I will say Hereditary. I don't know if it's gonna make like my top 10 favorite movies of all time, but I give it a lot of props for really breaking me, sticking with me after all this time, and even after repeat viewing, still kind of have a lingering effect of creepiness and trauma. I don't know. I don't know. I give it a 9 out of 10. So I'm on the whole opposite spectrum of this with you. So,
Yeah.
uh, but I think that's what's great about this podcast. I think it's great about obviously it's real life too. I mean, people disagree on certain things, and I think it's pretty cool to get someone's reaction to something that a movie that I really love, to see if they feel the same and like what their thoughts on it. What did you love about it? What did I love about it? And kind of comparing and contrasting that. So that's kind of what
Yeah.
this is all about. So I'm happy to do another episode with you. This was episode 7. This was your 6th one on the show, and
Mm-hmm.
we're obviously going to keep on going. So, yeah.
Yeah. Dave, I really wish I could have told you it scared me, but I think there was so
Yeah.
much hype. You hyped it, our friend Courtney hyped it, like so many people hyped it, and then I was like, wait, that is what?
You're like, what in the Disney Plus did I just watch? Well, I appreciate you doing this episode with me,
Of
Lauren.
course.
I'm glad you got to, I guess, face your fears and completely overcome them. Payment is getting nowhere near you. You are a very strong woman.
Oh,
And
Dave, thank you.
yes, and if, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything that anyone takes from this movie, please, for the love of God,
Me.
next time you go to a party, bring your dick.
I was gonna say bring your EpiPen.
Well, yeah. And if you see someone chopping walnuts at a party, get the fuck out of
So
there.
obvious. Ugh.
It's so obvious.
Why is this
Payment's
girl
trying to
not
get you.
bringing her EpiPen everywhere? That's what
Right.
pissed me off.
Yeah. Wow. So angry.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the most traumatizing part of the film for you.
I'm
No
like, all of
EpiPen.
this could have been avoided if she just carried her EpiPen with her.
Yeah, Payment still be lingering on that little girl.
Well, yeah, that's true. Do you ever wonder, like, I wondered, like, what was she, because she's been possessed by him for so long, like, what was she like? What would
We'll
she have
never
been
know.
like?
We never got to know Charlie.
I know. I feel like that's the real sad part of this whole movie is that no one knew Charlie. Stop.
Oh, Charlie. The Charlie that could have
The
been.
Charlie that could have been.
She could have been a valedictorian. She could have been president of the United States. First
And
female president.
fuck her grandmother for doing that to her.
Whoa. Harsh language. Fuck grandma. Damn.
Right? Grandma's
Grandma's wild. Grandma
like,
and Payment had a.
screw you, Grandma. Like, are you kidding me? Her granddaughter didn't even get a chance to live a life. Screw you, Grandma.
She didn't. One last fun fact before we go.
Okay.
Millie Shapiro, this was her first feature film debut. She played Charlie. This was her first acting gig. She did an interview not too long ago where she talked about how I'm laughing because yeah. She says that sometimes she hates being out on the streets and being recognized because people recognize her and say, "Oh, you're scary," and she's like, "People actually think that I'm scary."
Aw, I feel
Yeah,
so
just like,
bad for her.
poor girl.
Poor girl.
All right. Well, Lauren, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming back
Of
for episode
course.
7 and loving my Hereditary.
Hating your Hereditary.
Oh yeah, hating. Sorry, I forgot you used that strong word. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Lauren, we'll see you on another episode, and that's it. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.